Hey, Laura. While I was enjoying shopping for daily necessities, I heard a voice from behind. Turning around, I saw my former fiancé, Ryan. I couldn't hide my displeasure from showing on my face. Don't give me that look. So, you got married, huh? Ryan remarked, as if the troubles he caused me were no big deal. Typical him, talking like he had nothing to do with anything. I let out a heavy sigh, reminded of his lack of sensitivity. Without noticing or caring, he looked us over, his gaze lingering a little too long. So anyway, he eyed my husband Michael's outfit with a smug smirk. My wife's a beauty and a doctor, but your husband looks kinda shabby. He sneered, thoroughly pleased with himself, judging Michael's clothes while laughing at his own cleverness. But Michael simply gave a refreshing smile and responded smoothly. Oh well, she's fired then. Huh? Ryan looked taken aback, his face frozen in surprise. Ignoring him, Michael took my hand and started to walk away. Let's give him what he deserves, he whispered with a reassuring smile. Thank you, I said, squeezing his hand back. As we moved forward together, ready to put the past behind us. My name is Laura. I'm a 45-year-old housewife, living with my husband Michael. There's nothing particularly remarkable about me, except maybe my talent for handicrafts. And this is, in a way, my second life. Not in the sense of reincarnation, of course. I simply broke off an engagement once, met Michael, and then got married. Hence my second life. Michael and I met after my first engagement ended, and it was he who approached me first. After we started dating, we eventually remarried. He's a calm, kind man, and I'm truly glad I married him. As for my first engagement, I feel lucky we didn't go through with it. The reason we broke it off: Ryan, my former fiancé, cheated on me. Ryan and I were childhood friends, and he was always driven and ambitious, often looking down on me for being so average. Yet, he'd often step in to protect me from boys who teased me, so I saw him as someone dependable. Our families were close neighbors, so it wasn't surprising we ended up dating through middle and high school. Our parents were thrilled about our relationship, wholeheartedly supportive. The topic of marriage came up early, and right after college, Ryan and I started living together. But as we continued living together, his unpleasant side became more apparent. Hurry up and make dinner. Sorry, I just got home. You're always so slow. Forget it, I'll just eat out. Wait, Ryan. Back then, I was working, and I usually got home later than Ryan. He didn't seem to like it, and would pile on unreasonable demands as soon as I walked through the door, then storm out on his own. Living together like that, without any real communication, was tough. Still, since I was committed to marrying Ryan, I kept trying to open up conversations with him. Hey, how about going for a picnic sometime? Go by yourself. Maybe a movie then. Not in the mood. No matter how many times I tried to suggest dates, he ignored me, rejecting everything I proposed. It hurt, and eventually, I stopped trying to talk to him altogether. Ryan took advantage of the silence and began coming home later and later. You've been drinking. That's none of your business. None of my business. But we're getting married, aren't we? In a rare moment of defiance, I spoke up. Ryan ran his hand through his hair in irritation, then muttered words that shocked me to my core. I messed up getting engaged to you. What? You have no redeeming qualities at all, he sneered, looking me up and down with disdain. I stared back at him in disbelief. You're not that cute. Your body's average. You're not some career superstar. And your housekeeping's mediocre. Just totally average. Well, I know I'm not perfect, but... He cut me off before I could finish. Plus, with our parents so close, I can't even break things off with you easily. I got stuck with a dud. Why would you say that? Just shut up already, he snapped, abruptly ending the conversation. He headed straight to the bedroom and locked the door behind him. We shared that bedroom. Without access, I didn't even have sheets to sleep with. Open the door. I called out repeatedly, but all I heard from the other side was Ryan's snoring. He had no intention of responding. In the end, I spent the night on the living room sofa with just a bath towel to keep me warm. 2 months later, my conversations with Ryan had dwindled to almost nothing. I knew deep down that I couldn't continue this relationship any longer. Thankfully, we weren't married yet, and I had a job. Moving out would be a bit of a strain, but it was doable. So every day, I kept my eyes on rental listings, silently waiting for Ryan to end things. But he never brought it up. Instead, whenever we visited my parents, he would sing my praises. Laura's such a huge help. The place is always spotless, the food's amazing, I'm really lucky. Ever since she was a kid, I'd been hoping Laura would marry you. She's such a daydreamer, you make me feel at ease knowing you're there for her. Dad, who'd always been fond of Ryan, would laugh heartily. I would sit there, watching the scene play out with a hollow gaze. Even Mom had total faith in Ryan. Was there no one on my side? Ryan had charmed everyone around me. Would I be trapped into marrying him? I felt hopeless. But then an unexpected turning point arrived. Hey, let's break up. What? One day, as I was cleaning the kitchen, Ryan sipping his coffee suddenly broke the silence. Caught off guard, I couldn't immediately respond. I was about to accept when his next words left me speechless. Met a cute girl at a mixer last month, 25, and she's a doctor. I'm gonna live with her, so you need to move out. I could barely process what he was saying. Apparently, he hadn't broken up with me sooner because he didn't have a replacement lined up. According to him, he couldn't manage on his own, and without someone, paying rent and doing chores would be a hassle. You're awful. Huh? It's no big deal. Oh yeah, she's moving in next week, so get out fast. That's impossible on such short notice. When I raised my voice, he matched my tone. Shut up. This is on you for being slow about it. And don't you dare slack off on the chores before you go, got it? He shot me a menacing glare before storming out, phone in hand. I was left standing there in stunned silence, unable to move. After that, I packed up my things and returned to my parents' house. At first, my parents thought I might have just had an argument with Ryan, but after hearing my story, they were furious on my behalf. A meeting between both families was arranged. On the day of the meeting, Ryan arrived at his parents' house with an unfamiliar woman by his side. Both my parents and I, as well as his own parents, stared at her in disbelief. She began introducing herself with a smug smile. Nice to meet you. My name is Amy. I'm dating Ryan, with the intention of getting married. Married? We exclaimed. Yes. Isn't he already planning to break up with her? She continued, glancing at me with a mocking expression, as if flaunting her victory. I may be mild-mannered, but even I have my limits. I couldn't hold back my anger any longer. I am still engaged to Ryan. This is incredibly disrespectful. And what about it? You're breaking up anyway, aren't you? Oh, are you looking for compensation? How much do you want? Amy replied with a sneer. It's not about that, I shouted, my voice rising in frustration at her rudeness. At that moment, Ryan's mother, Helen, glared at Amy in support of me. I am against this. I won't forgive anyone who hurts Laura, who is like a daughter to me. Ryan, I never want to see you or Amy again. Mom, are you sure about this? She's a doctor. She's wealthy. Ryan protested, pointing to Amy. Helen looked at him with sheer disappointment and sighed. Then Ryan's father, Gary, joined in with a calm but resolute tone. I feel the same. I don't care about wealth or status. We're cutting ties with you. Fine, then don't expect any help in your old age, Ryan yelled, pulling Amy away as they left in a huff. After they disappeared, we returned inside, and his parents immediately apologized. We're truly sorry for everything. You have nothing to apologize for, my parents and I reassured them, helping them back to their feet. After discussing things, we all agreed to stay in touch, and it was settled that the engagement would be broken off and that he would be disowned. Ryan's parents expressed genuine regret that I wouldn't become their daughter-in-law. Even though we couldn't be family, you can always count on us. Yes, we'll make sure he pays his dues. Let us know if you need anything. I was grateful for my in-laws' kind words and decided to start a new chapter in my life. By the following week, compensation had been transferred from Ryan and Amy. It was a larger sum than I expected, so I used part of it for moving expenses, left my parents' house, and relocated to a new place, allowing myself time to search for a job at a relaxed pace. 2 months after parting ways with Ryan, I began working at a new company. 2 years later, I met the man who would become my husband, Michael. I worked at a medical equipment company, and Michael was the son of one of our clients. We met by chance because we frequented the same cafe. I'd be sitting with a coffee, working on a small knitting project, while Michael read a book. We didn't interact initially, but one day, Michael struck up a conversation. What are you making there?" he asked. Oh, I was surprised by his sudden question, but from then on, we began chatting little by little, eventually realizing we shared work connections. Our relationship developed naturally, and soon after, we started dating. 2 years later, I introduced him to my parents, and we decided to get married. "I'll make you happy for the rest of your life," he said. "Yes, thank you. I look forward to our life together," I replied. We enjoyed a blissful newlywed life, though it wasn't filled with flashy activities. I had left my job to become a housewife, and I spent my days taking care of our home. Michael worked but still helped with household chores. "Are you feeling tired, Laura? I'll take care of everything today, just relax," he would say. And on weekends he'd take charge of the cooking and cleanup. I felt immense gratitude for Michael's kindness. 5 years into our marriage, we decided to buy a house. As it happened, Michael's family home was in a town right next to mine. After several discussions, we chose a home midway between our parents' houses, in a quiet residential area with nearby supermarkets perfect for us. Once we settled in, we spent a weekend shopping at the local supermarket. "Laura, you love paella, right? I'll make some for you," Michael offered. "Really? Thank you," I replied, excited. His paella was fantastic. As I wandered through the supermarket, looking at ingredients with a spring in my step, I headed toward the household goods section. "Hey, Laura." Just then, I heard a voice call out behind me. I turned around, and there stood Ryan. I couldn't help but show my distaste on my face upon seeing him. "Don't look so disgusted. So you got married, huh?" he said, brushing off his own past actions as if he had nothing to do with them. Ryan had always been tactless, I remembered, letting out a deep sigh. Ignoring my reaction, he continued, looking at us. Still, he trailed off, eyeing Michael's outfit with a smug smile. "My wife is a gorgeous doctor, you know. Your husband looks cheap." Ryan laughed mockingly, his gaze dripping with disdain as he insulted Michael's appearance. But Michael merely smiled back, calm and bright. "Oh, then your wife is fired," he said casually. "What? Ryan's face froze in shock as Michael, ignoring him, took my hand and began to walk away. "Let's make sure they face the consequences, shall we?" Michael said gently. "Yes, thank you," I replied, grateful and resolute to close that chapter once and for all. The next day, a call came through to my smartphone from an unknown number. I signaled to Michael in the other room before answering. It was Ryan. "Hey, what the hell is going on?" he yelled. "What do you mean?" I replied calmly. "Amy actually got fired," he shouted, his tone brimming with anger. I stayed completely unfazed, which only seemed to agitate him further. "What's wrong with your husband?" Ryan demanded. Taking a deep breath, I decided to tell him the truth about Michael's profession. "He's the director of the hospital where your wife worked." "Director," Ryan repeated, going silent for a moment before suddenly bursting into laughter. "Come on, stop with the lies." "Lies? Yeah, right. That guy dressed so cheaply couldn't possibly be a director." At this, I couldn't help but laugh myself. "Cheap? Those are clothes from a top luxury brand." "Wait, what?" I could hear Ryan's incredulous voice over the line. Yes, Michael preferred wearing simple clothes, but that didn't mean they were cheap. In fact, his wardrobe often included custom-made pieces and limited editions from top luxury brands. Ryan, on the other hand, had always been more interested in famous brands with large logos that showed off their label. I remembered he liked clothes with oversized logos, so he probably assumed that anything without a logo, like Michael's custom-made outfit, was no name and inexpensive. However, the clothes Michael wore that day were custom-made, one-of-a-kind pieces. For Ryan to call them cheap only showed that he lacked the ability to appreciate quality. It's like he was admitting that his sense of style was not refined. The clothes Michael was wearing were custom-made and high-end. "Guess you don't have much of an eye for quality, do you?" I remarked. "Stop bragging," Ryan snapped. "What designer are you talking about?" When I mentioned the designer's name, Ryan fell silent. This particular designer was known for making only single, unique pieces, each of which could easily cost over $10,000. "No way. That cheap-looking guy," he muttered in disbelief. "As I said, he's a director. His name is Michael Davis. Anyone can claim to be someone with a fancy title." Ryan raised his voice, clearly still unwilling to believe me. I replied calmly, "Well, go look it up on the hospital's website. His picture is right there. If you're lying, I won't let this go," he threatened, still on the line, as he apparently navigated to the website. Then I heard a small gasp of shock. "Your husband? He really is the director." "Exactly, like I told you. Now, if that's all." "Wait, please. What is it?" Ryan called out, trying to stop me. I sighed and reluctantly responded. Ryan's tone softened as he tried to sound pleading. "Since you're the director's wife, couldn't you get Amy's termination reversed? Come on, we were childhood friends, right?" The sheer selfishness of his request left me speechless. In what world does someone ask their ex-fiancé's spouse to reverse the firing of the person they cheated with? I finished firmly, making it clear that I had no intention of helping him. "No, I won't. Besides, my husband isn't the kind of person who'd fire someone out of spite." Then, he stammered, "It was just a coincidence that yesterday's events became the final straw. I'm sure your wife had her own reasons for being dismissed." Ryan seemed stunned on the other end of the line after I finished speaking. Ignoring his silence, I hung up, then set his number to blocked. Beside me, Michael nodded reassuringly, and I smiled, feeling grateful for his support. A few days later, I received a call from a familiar number. I couldn't help but chuckle at the conversation that followed. Understood. I'll set up a time for the meeting, I replied, ending the call. Before explaining everything to Michael, we decided to send Ryan and Amy a formal notice with the date and time for the meeting. Over the next few days, Amy called Michael's phone several times, but he never answered and simply logged each missed call as part of the record. Until the meeting, try to stay home. I'll handle the shopping, he advised. All right. No matter how many times I asked, Michael wouldn't tell me the reason. But knowing Michael, I trusted that there was a reason behind it, so I decided to stay at home. Finally, the day arrived. Michael and I arrived early at the hotel room we'd reserved for the meeting. Ryan and Amy entered precisely on time, with Amy smirking smugly as she saw me. Let's get started, shall we? Michael said as we took our seats. Excuse me, Director. Today's meeting is about reversing my dismissal, correct? Amy interrupted with a hint of defiance. Without changing his expression, Michael ignored her question and got straight to the real topic. Today's discussion is about prohibiting further harassment from both Ryan towards Laura and Amy towards me. Going forward, we are imposing a complete non-contact agreement. Wait, when did I ever harass anyone? And why is Amy involved? Ryan pounded the table and snapped. The water in his glass shook, spilling slightly on the table, and silence filled the room. Michael was the first to speak. It's as I said. We have evidence that you've been lurking around our home recently. What are you talking about? Ryan retorted. You were caught on our security cameras. You were even there again this morning. Eck, I was shocked at the revelation. After the call with me, it seems Ryan began lurking around our home, drawn in by the fact that our large house is quite recognizable. When Michael finished explaining, Amy erupted. What's this about hanging around your ex's place? She shouted at Ryan. It's not what it looks like, Amy. There's a deeper reason. He stammered. What kind of reason could you possibly have? She shot back. Oh, and what about you following Laura's husband around? What's your excuse for that? Ryan retorted, trying to turn the tables. Amy looked away, visibly uncomfortable. Michael continued calmly, listing Amy's behavior, claiming to be my lover, trying to get in my car, even packing lunchboxes for me. Despite repeated warnings, it was nothing short of harassment. Lunchboxes. You said you were making those for a coworker. Ryan protested, grabbing Amy's shoulders and shaking her. Amy looked at me with a pout, bitterness evident in her eyes. I knew Laura was Ryan's ex-fiancé, and I thought, I'm smarter and prettier. Why should she have the better life? And let's be honest, a director earns far more than Ryan, she spat out. So you were trying to cheat? Ryan exclaimed, aghast. Not that it's any of your business, she snapped back. Watching their argument unfold, Michael and I exchanged weary glances. After a few minutes of back and forth, they both fell silent, glaring at each other as they caught their breath. Michael addressed them again, his voice firm. Both of you need to stop your stalking behavior. Amy's dismissal was triggered by her refusal to leave me alone, in addition to her neglect of her professional duties. I was working hard. Amy muttered defensively. Really? You offloaded most of your responsibilities onto new hires, Michael responded. Amy turned pale, unable to deny it. Her plan had been to abandon her medical duties and pursue Michael, assuming she could easily steal him from me just as she had taken Ryan. A surge of anger bubbled up inside me. Sorry, but unlike Ryan, he doesn't judge people by looks or money alone. Amy's face turned scarlet with fury, her eyes blazing with resentment. But Michael spoke up again, emphasizing my words. It doesn't matter how beautiful or wealthy you are, Amy. You could never match Laura's inner beauty. Even if the world turned upside down, I'd never be interested in you. Ugh, no way. At that, Amy's pride was thoroughly shattered. She began to sniffle, her face wet with tears. Ryan, who only moments before had been arguing with her, now rubbed her back, glaring at us. Their sudden alliance was almost laughable, and I was tempted to make a snide remark about their newfound solidarity, but I held my tongue. Ryan twisted his mouth into a smirk and sarcastically spoke up. You're saying your heart is pure, but I bet you're enjoying seeing Amy and me in this situation, right? Where's the purity in that? At Ryan's words, Michael's lips moved slightly. It was a habit that appeared when Michael was angry, and I couldn't help but let out a dry laugh. Next to me, Michael put on a smile and spoke. I heard you've been borrowing money from some rather shady sources, Ryan. What? How do you know about that? When we confirmed the stalking, we had it investigated, Michael said, pulling out some documents from his bag. The papers detailed the amount of money Ryan owed, and which financial institutions he had borrowed from. Debt. What does that mean? No, this is, well. Amy, apparently unaware of his debts, stared at him in shock. Ryan, it seems you were fired 6 months ago. Was the reason for the debt to cover up losing your job? How do you know all this? Wait, no, that's not it. Ryan hastily denied it, but it was already too late. Amy glared at him, her face turning bright red. Fired? What do you mean you weren't working? So all the living expenses up until now have been on debt. This is your fault. You spend money recklessly. Even though you earn a high salary, you barely save any of it. As the two of them started arguing again, I sighed in disbelief, and my smartphone rang. Hello? Yay, we're in the farthest room. Did they arrive? Yay, looks like it. At the same time I spoke, the door to the private room was knocked. When it opened, Ryan's eyes widened as he saw who was standing there. Dad, Mom. Yes, the ones who called me were Ryan's parents, my former in-laws. After hearing about the commotion from my parents, they had called to apologize to me. They also asked to set up a meeting because they had something important they wanted to discuss. The former in-laws glared at Ryan, sat down, and pulled out a piece of paper. We came here to have you sign this today. What's this? Ryan turned pale as he read the text on the paper, and no wonder, as it was a document stating that he would renounce his inheritance. Renounce inheritance? What about the house? What about the savings? What are you going to do? We're leaving everything to Laura. What? Why? At Ryan's raised voice, Gary also responded in a loud tone. Of course, how could we leave anything to you? Laura invited us to her wedding and even celebrated her birthday with us. You've been disowned, so you have no right to inherit. Gary's words were followed by a firm nod from Helen. Ryan stood frozen, his face pale. What am I going to do? I have debts, you know. I was hoping to pay them off with the inheritance. Throw away those childish ideas. Gary shot back, sealing the matter. Ryan slumped down, defeated. Next to him, Amy also looked just as pale. It seemed the lack of money was no exaggeration. What are we supposed to do now? I heard Amy mutter. Laura, will you marry me? What? After a few minutes of silence, thinking the discussion was over, Ryan suddenly said those words. If he had said that over 10 years ago, when we were dating, I might have been happy to hear it. But now it only felt repulsive. I rejected him clearly and firmly. Absolutely not. I'm already married to Michael. And you have Amy, right? But he didn't give up. His eyes pleaded as he desperately begged. Please, come on. We're childhood friends, right? Please, help me. If we marry, the inheritance will come, and I can pay off my debts. Unbelievable. It was all about money, money, money. There might have been a little bit of affection left from when we were kids, but that was completely gone now. I smiled brightly at him. He seemed to interpret my smile as something positive, and grinned happily back at me. But it was no longer the pure smile I remembered from our childhood. It was a smile full of greed. The Ryan I once liked is gone. I finally felt like I could put the past behind me. There was no longer any affection left. Still smiling, I spoke calmly. I absolutely won't marry you. The thought of marrying you makes me sick. Besides, I'm very happy now. So, don't ever come near me again. Ryan, who had never been rejected so clearly before, stared at me in shock, still frozen in place. Seeing this, Gary handed him a pen. Ryan signed the papers with that pen, then left the private room. Wait a minute, Amy said, as she left the private room. Finally, it seemed like everything was over. I let out a sigh of relief and signaled to the server. Soon, a variety of dishes were brought out one after another. Thank you so much for today. Please enjoy all the food. My former in-laws seemed delighted, eating the food and praising how delicious it was. Michael and I also enjoyed the meal as we watched them. Afterward, I heard that Ryan and Amy got a divorce. Amy's dismissal wasn't reversed, and although she tried to work at another hospital, it seemed that her bad reputation had spread everywhere, and no one would hire her. Amy, who had always been careless with money, had no savings, and now she was apparently getting by selling brand name items and doing part-time jobs. However, her haughty personality made it difficult for her to stay in one place for long. As for Ryan, he apparently disappeared without a trace after that. He might have taken on dangerous jobs to pay off his debts, or maybe he was sent abroad for work. Either way, it was his own responsibility, and it no longer concerned me, so I had no interest in it. Occasionally, I heard that money was being transferred to my former in-law's account, so he was probably still alive. Despite cutting ties, he was their only son, so I sometimes wished they would at least let me know that he was alive. My former in-laws gave me most of their assets as a gift while they were still alive. From that, I paid for their stay at a comfortable nursing home. Although they initially insisted on paying for it themselves, they weren't fond of accepting gifts, so I asked to return the favor a little. After some consideration, I secured rooms for my parents and my former in-laws at a luxurious nursing home. For now, they continue to live in their neighboring homes as usual, with plans to move to the nursing home if needed. Both my parents and my former in-laws were very happy to know that they would be living next door to each other there. Recently, Michael succeeded in a complicated surgery and became quite famous. He started receiving many TV interview requests, but for him, patients always came first. He said that interviews got in the way of his work, so he declined most of them. That's why I fell in love with him, his commitment to his work. I couldn't help but fall in love with him all over again. By the way, we recently adopted a child. Actually, Michael couldn't have children due to an accident when he was little. I knew this and married him. However, Michael loves children immensely. Watching him care for pediatric patients, I couldn't help but think, I wish we had children. That's why we discussed it many times and decided to adopt a child. The child who came to us is a 6-year-old boy named Eric. He had been placed in a facility right after birth. The moment our eyes met, I knew for sure this was the child for us. It seemed that Michael felt the same. and we immediately started living together as a trial. Recently, he officially became part of our family, although there's still some hesitation. Having Eric in our home has made it even brighter and livelier. Not only that, but he is incredibly smart and is quickly absorbing everything Michael teaches him. He had already expressed his dream of becoming a doctor before we adopted him, so Michael is fully committed to his studies, helping him along the way. "Mom, what is it?" I responded, savoring the joy of hearing him call me for the first time. Today, I had promised to make pancakes with Eric. Pancakes are Michael's favorite food. Little by little, we're becoming a family. As I lined up the ingredients in the kitchen, I thought to myself, "All right, Eric, shall we get started?" "Yay!" With an energetic reply, we began cooking. Excited for the life ahead of us, I cracked the eggs, ready to create new memories together.
Leave the house and don't take anything with you. Fine by me. Just stop making life miserable for Sophia and the others. What on earth are these people talking about? But something inside me snapped at that moment. All right, I'll leave then. Good riddance. That'll get rid of an annoyance. We can finally live happily just as a family. With those snide comments from my sister-in-law Catherine and her husband Robert, I packed my bags and left. Why didn't you tell us? Now, the in-laws have finally caught on. But it's too late. Let them suffer, serves them right. My name is Anna, a 32-year-old office worker. I married my husband Ken 3 years ago. I met Ken through work. He would often come to my workplace for business, and I was drawn to his hard-working attitude. During a casual night out with coworkers, I ran into Ken at a bar and we ended up drinking together. As the evening went on, we found ourselves sitting next to each other and engaged in various conversations. Turns out, we both attended the same high school. Ken is 2 years older than me. Apparently, he was a senior when I was a freshman. But we never met. Maybe we passed each other in the hallway. That's a funny thought. It's hard to imagine we walked the same high school hallways, meeting only later in life. Back then, I was likely immature, full of that teen energy and noise. Who knows, maybe he saw me in the hallways and found me annoying. Thinking about it now, I'm glad we met after we both matured a bit. That night out was the catalyst for Ken and me growing closer. He eventually asked me out to dinner, and we started meeting up after work. One date led to another, and we became a couple. Ken was kind, mature, and someone I could rely on. Gradually, I found myself falling for him. Our relationship progressed smoothly. And about a year in, Ken popped the question. "Anna, you're the one for me. I think it's fate we went to the same high school. Will you marry me?" "Yes. I'd be honored." And so, we decided to get married. Next, we had family meetings with each other's parents. My parents were quite fond of Ken, which put me at ease. "Who would have thought you both went to the same high school?" "That school has a great culture. I have a coworker from there who's really dedicated. A trustworthy person, I'd say." My dad can be quite stubborn, so hearing him say that was a relief. Ken had graduated from a prestigious university and worked for a reputable company. So I wasn't too worried, but it was nice to have my parents' approval. Then we visited Ken's family for another family meeting. That's when things got a little uncomfortable. Ken's parents weren't exactly the warmest people. "So you're Ken's fiancé? You're quite plain, aren't you?" "We were hoping for a supermodel or at least the daughter of a big company's CEO, given where Ken works." "Hey, Dad, Mom, that's rude." "Just kidding. You always take things so seriously, Ken." "Right, don't take it to heart. just parent humor. Sophia, my mother-in-law, and William, my father-in-law, were clearly mocking me. You didn't go to a famous university, and I've never heard of your company. But as long as you focus on housework and have children, it won't be an issue. They made it sound like I was just a housekeeper and a baby-making machine. That family meeting made me instantly uncomfortable around my in-laws. Nevertheless, we wrapped up the meetings and got married. Married life was blissful. We both worked hard at our jobs and shared household chores. Ken was an excellent cook, even better than me. So I always looked forward to his meals. Whenever I made a request, he'd whip up that dish, and it would always taste amazing. Even when I'd come home tired from work, eating Ken's cooking would lift my spirits. Of course, when it was my turn, I put my all into cooking. Ken would always compliment my cooking, saying it was delicious. I really liked the depth of flavor in Anna's cooking. I guess I tend to overcomplicate things a bit, you know? No way, Ken. Your food tastes like it came straight from a restaurant. I feel like we have our own personal chef. Really? That means a lot to hear you say that. We were always full of praise for each other. That's why we've been able to have such a harmonious married life. 2 years have flown by since we got married, and we're still as close as ever. But there's been one nagging issue. We haven't been able to have kids. Now, it's only been 2 years, so we're not exactly in a rush. But the pressure from my in-laws has been substantial. When are you going to get pregnant, Anna? Sophia, you asked about this just last week over the phone. These things don't change overnight. What are you talking about? If you keep procrastinating, that's why you won't have children. Are you sure you're even capable? What? Did you hide that from Ken when you married him? Absolutely not. If you're lying, I won't let it slide. Sophia often cornered me like this. Eventually, I underwent fertility testing and reported to my in-laws that I was fully capable of having children. They weren't exactly thrilled, but at least they understood I could have kids. Still, they continued to heap on the pressure. If you're capable of having kids, then hurry up. What a useless daughter-in-law. Being pressured like this only makes it harder to conceive. Every visit to the in-laws' house became an ordeal. And both of them would only criticize me when Ken wasn't around. Sophia would often call to confirm Ken was away before launching into her tirades. Life with Ken was great, but dealing with the in-laws was causing me a lot of stress. I felt uneasy, fearing that I'd have to endure their criticisms indefinitely. However, amidst all this, another issue arose. William, Ken's father, became frail and needed nursing care. And, of course, the in-laws expected us to move in with them. Ken is the eldest son, so it's only natural that he helps out. Since you can't have kids, the least you can do is be useful. They continued to press us like this. And Ken, unaware of the emotional toll his parents were taking on me, broached the subject of us moving in together. Mom seems to be struggling a lot. I really want to help out if I can. What do you think? I was really torn. Living together would likely be hard. My in-laws have been giving me a hard time behind Ken's back. If I outright say no, Ken would be shocked. So, I decided to lay down some conditions. Okay, I get that Sophia and the family are having a hard time. Can I add some conditions of my own? Sure, go ahead. I'm the one asking for a favor, after all. Thanks. First off, I won't be taking care of William. Normally, that should fall on Sophia or their actual son, you, Ken. Also, I want to continue working. If you can agree to these 2 conditions, then we can live together. As I said this, Ken looked at me seriously. He might be disappointed. Maybe he'll say it's a problem if I'm not willing to cooperate with his parents. But Ken looked me in the eye and said, "All right. I accept your conditions. I'll make sure not to put any burden on you." Facing Ken, who looked at me straight on, I decided to trust him. And so, we moved into my in-laws' house to begin our life together. They seemed to think they could boss me around, as Sophia quickly started issuing orders. "Anna, please take care of William. And also, could you clean the shower and handle all the cooking?" Sophia said this as if it were a given. But I trusted Ken, so I stood my ground. "I won't be doing any nursing care for William. That's not my role. I'll help out with household chores as much as I can, but not to the extent that it interferes with my job. So, don't pile everything on me." Hearing this, Sophia's eyes widened in anger. "What? What are you saying, Anna? If you won't do it, then who will?" "That would be the job of you, Sophia, or his son Ken." "What are you talking about? There's no way I'll let Ken do it. You should do it." Sophia yelled at me. And during dinner, she said, "It seems Anna doesn't care about us at all. She doesn't even want to help with William's nursing care. All I asked for was a little help in tough times." Sophia tried to make it seem like I was the one at fault. She probably thought Ken would scold me. But Ken said, "Well, those were the conditions for living together." "Huh?" My in-laws were surprised. Ken continued, unfazed. "When we agreed to live together, Anna and I made a promise. She won't assist with any nursing care, and she will continue to work." "What? You can't be serious." The in-laws were speechless, stunned by how things had unfolded. Inside, I struck a mental victory pose. I regretted not talking to Ken about the harassment from the in-laws sooner. From that moment on, they couldn't boss me around anymore, and they seemed frustrated. For the most part, I lived peacefully without any unreasonable demands. Of course, I still helped with chores and contributed money to the household through Ken. I thought the in-laws would resent me if I gave the money directly. Then William's health started to decline, and he needed to be hospitalized. The doctors said the treatment and hospital fees would be quite expensive. Sophia was really stressed about it. "I'm on a fixed income now. Why does this have to cost so much?" Ken had reduced his work hours to help care for his dad. So our income had decreased too. Seeing Sophia struggle, I decided to help out financially. I told Ken, "Give this to Sophia and say it's from you," offering to cover William's monthly medical bills. Ken initially refused, but he really cares for his parents, so I insisted. "Don't be shy. We're married, after all," I said. Ken replied, "Thank you, this really helps." Grateful for my support. We continued our lives together while William underwent treatment. Then, one day, an unexpected visitor arrived. Catherine, my sister-in-law. "So, Dad's in the hospital?" "Tough break. But that means there's an empty room here, right? So we can move in, can't we?" Catherine had barely set foot in the house before she dropped this bombshell. We'd only met her a few times, like at our wedding and hers, and at family events. Since we moved into the in-laws' house, she'd never visited. So her sudden appearance and proposition caught me off guard. It seems she wants to live here. Honestly, I'd prefer if she and her husband moved in and we moved out. But Sophia declined, saying, "Ken's here now, and Dad might come back, so it's not possible." Catherine seemed to have expected this and quickly backed down, saying, "Yeah, figures." However, she did make it clear that she was ready to move in any time. And from that point on, Catherine started visiting the in-laws' house more frequently. Today, I made dinner inspired by what Mom taught me. What do you think? Catherine had been frequently cozying up to Sophia. It seemed like she was eager to replace us in our joint living arrangement. I had an inkling that something was off about Catherine. Could she be hiding something? Around that time, an unexpected event occurred. Ken got into a car accident on his way home from work and passed away. I rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. I was devastated. To lose my beloved partner so soon. I had wanted to make so many more memories with Ken. The in-laws were also grieving over the sudden news of Ken's death. Even after the funeral, I couldn't come to terms with Ken being gone and felt really down. My boss gave me an extended leave, hoping I would recover soon. But being at the in-laws' house, my heart felt no peace. I had paid for William's medical treatment for this month and planned to stay there until I found a new place. I was also a bit worried about Sophia being alone. We might not like each other very much, but we've both lost someone dear. We're both hurting, I thought. But then Sophia trampled all over my good intentions. The tipping point came one day when Catherine and her husband visited.
Why is Anna still here even though Ken has passed away?
Catherine questioned Sophia like that. Sophia chimed in. I was thinking the same thing. We've been busy with the funeral, but we're not obliged to keep Anna, an outsider, here. Fueled by Sophia's words, Catherine and her husband became even more assertive.
Outsiders should leave, and leave your assets too.
Exactly. Don't burden Sophia and the rest any longer. What on earth are these people talking about? But something in me snapped then. Fine, I'll leave. They looked surprised when I easily agreed, but then they smirked. Now we can get rid of the troublemaker. We can finally live happily just as a family.
Don't worry, Mom. From now on, we'll be the ones living here.
As they spoke those words, I packed my bags and left. A month had passed since then. Living in a studio apartment near my workplace, I had been focusing on my career. Then one day, I received a call from an unknown number. Hello? Thinking it might be work-related, I answered. It was Sophia.
Anna, why didn't you tell me? I had no idea you were the one paying for William's medical bills. And the money in the house, it wasn't Ken but you.
It was too late for the people in my in-laws' house to realize the truth. They had it coming. I thought it would make things easier if we said the money came from Ken. Truthfully, Ken was cutting back on work to help with William's nursing care, so I was the one making significantly more money.
So, that's how it was. I'm sorry for not noticing. Can you help us again?
No way.
What? Why?
I always tried to be minimally supportive as family, even when mistreated by you and others. But you continued to harass me without knowing the truth, even trying to kick me out. I've put an end to my marital ties with the late Ken. We're now complete strangers. Please figure out how to handle William and your daughter's family issues on your own. I said that. And hung up. Then, I blocked her number. I later learned from a relative still in contact with me that William had tried to force Sophia into a divorce to prioritize his own treatment. He probably thought they could afford it if one less person needed supporting. However, Sophia refused, insisting she would only agree to a divorce if she got a huge settlement. Right now, their family is a mess, embroiled in legal battles. Both are being emotional, but they'll soon realize the lawyer fees will bleed them dry. Eventually, there won't be any assets left to divide. Catherine and her husband, it turns out, had debts, and they were close to being kicked out back then. In-laws have just now realized the fact, but it's too late. They were planning to mooch off my in-laws. but that failed miserably as my in-laws are now on the brink of divorce. Currently, Catherine and her husband are living in a cheap apartment and are asking relatives and friends for loans. However, no one is lending them money because they can expect that they will never get it back. Their debt will continue to grow with interest, making their situation even worse. Knowing my in-laws are spiraling downward like this, I thought, serves you right. I decided to put them behind me and move on. Of course, I'll never forget Ken, who was kind to me. I plan to live my life to the fullest so that someday, we'll have a lot to talk about in heaven.
This dress really suits you. Wendy didn't respond to the words, instead showing a somewhat confused expression. My sister-in-law, Rebecca, had somehow given my daughter Carol's dress to her own daughter, Wendy. Seeing me fall silent, unable to process the situation. "Doesn't Wendy look way cuter?" Rebecca sneered, pressing the dress against Wendy's shoulder. If I said anything back here, it might just turn into a fight. I glanced over at my husband, Bert, who kept silent, looking visibly uncomfortable. "Carol, don't you think Wendy would look cuter in it? Or do you think you look better than Wendy? That Wendy isn't on your level?" "Bert, why would you say it like that? I can confidently say Wendy's cuter. Am I thinking anything wrong?" Rebecca's voice grew bolder, as though she had just won a decisive victory. "What exactly am I witnessing here? Wendy, wearing a dress, is special. If someone offers it, you should definitely take it. Understand?" Rebecca glared at Bert. Why can't Bert ever stand up to Rebecca? As much as I felt disappointed in my own husband, the words he spoke next, even under Rebecca's pressure, were truly unforgivable. "Well, it's true that the dress looks better on Wendy than on a face like Carol's." The moment Bert looked down at Carol and said those words, time froze inside of me. The sound hit me like cold water, as if splashed right onto my own soul. Carol's little face shifted to an expression full of sadness. "Thank you for everything." I took Carol's hand and said this with an impassive expression, realizing my resolve. Carol, who had been frozen in place, gave a small nod and turned back towards Bert. "Goodbye, old man, I no longer know." She said this as we started preparing to leave the house together. After we stepped outside, the sound of Rebecca's laughter echoed behind us, but Carol and I didn't stop walking. Resolute to walk toward a new future, we left without looking back. Yet everything turned around just 10 minutes later. My name is Nicola, age 45. I live with my husband Bert and my daughter Carol. I always thought of it as a peaceful, happy family. In the dining kitchen, which overlooks the living room, I was preparing a simple breakfast. My kind husband Bert was reading the newspaper, while my 8-year-old Carol was getting ready for her day. Just before leaving for school, it was her habit to check her backpack one last time. I worked part-time on weekdays, staying fairly busy. Maybe she was trying to be considerate of me. She was a self-sufficient child who managed on her own. Bert adored Carol and would braid her hair every day, even without being asked. I wanted to be the kind of dad who could do braids. Ever since she was in preschool, Bert would struggle to braid her hair before leaving for work. Now he braids even faster and more skillfully than I do. Out the kitchen window, I can see our small yard. Last week on my day off, Carol and I planted bulbs in preparation for spring. We'd bought tulip bulbs from the local home improvement store, along with soil for the flower bed, and simply planted them together. I don't have much to do until spring, but I've gotten into the habit of occasionally glancing out the small kitchen window at the barren soil in the flower bed. The day I planted bulbs in the flower bed, my sister-in-law, Rebecca, moved into the neighborhood. Apparently, she moved here suddenly without even letting Bert know. She came over to introduce herself with her child, Wendy. Nicola, it's been a while. We're just nearby now. I hope it won't be a bother. Caught off guard by Rebecca's sudden visit, I was still wearing my gardening gloves. Bert made a visibly annoyed face and said, "Rebecca, you could have at least called to let us know you were coming." Seeing Bert's slightly angry look, Rebecca narrowed her eyes a bit, running her fingers through her perfectly styled hair. She looked up at Bert with a slight smile. "Hey, why don't we talk for a bit? There are some things only siblings can discuss." "Right." Bert stared at Rebecca for a moment before agreeing to go inside and discuss things further. I was left feeling puzzled. Wendy was left hanging. Since Wendy looked quite bored, I invited her to help plant bulbs in the flower bed with Carol. "I'm sorry." Holding the trowel I handed her, Wendy said this a bit sadly. For an elementary schooler, Wendy has bright orange hair and large eyes. She resembles her mother, Rebecca, with her flashy appearance and long golden hair. She's got a very pretty face, unlike me or Carol, who are more subdued. She wears bright clothes with a cheerful ribbon. It's nothing to be sorry about. Let's plant these together. When spring comes, flowers will bloom everywhere. Yay, thanks. Carol smiled gently and placed a bulb in Wendy's hand. Wendy thought for a moment, then sat on the ground and began digging with a trowel. Once we'd finished planting the bulbs in the flower bed, the two of them left. With a slight smile, "Rebecca wants us to look after Wendy from tomorrow morning," Bert told me. According to Bert, he didn't get the full details, but apparently, Rebecca has been under a lot of stress since her divorce and wants to take a break to relax. Mom and Dad were always lenient with Rebecca when we were kids. I guess you could say she's always been good at getting what she wants. I had to hold back a lot when I was little, too. So you just agreed to babysit her, just like that. Yay, sorry. I just couldn't say no. But I'll be the one taking care of her in the end, won't I? It's like he's still putting up with his sister's selfishness, just like he did when they were young. Could it be that nothing's really changed? From that day on, Wendy was left with us every weekend I wasn't working. It happened so often that I ended up talking to Bert about it. "I know you feel bad for Rebecca too." But he just said, a bit dissatisfied. I found myself holding back as well. After all, Bert and Rebecca's parents had already passed away. Thinking about how they were each other's only family left, it felt like the right thing to do to put up with it. Since then, Wendy started coming to spend every weekend with us, and I started to feel our everyday life changing more and more. In the morning, I prepared breakfast in the kitchen and glanced at the unchanging flower bed. As I watched our once peaceful days gradually fade away, I felt a faint shadow of unease settling in. The reason for my unease was clear. Ever since Rebecca moved in, Bert's behavior had changed. He had lost that gentle touch, always seeming a bit rushed, a little colder somehow. On weekdays, he worked late as usual, but lately, even on his days off, he'd say, "I'm going to work on some file somewhere quiet," and he'd leave with his laptop. Recently, we're spending less time together as a family. I finally gathered the courage to ask Bert. For me, it took a lot of bravery to bring up something like this. Bert, who hands me his entire paycheck, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, and doesn't really have any hobbies. The same gentle man who used to braid our daughter's hair couldn't make time for family, and I understood it must mean he was very busy. Though I wasn't sure what answer I hoped for, part of me still wanted to hear something that would put my mind at ease. They assigned me a new project at work, and there's a lot more networking involved. I really can't avoid it. I'm truly sorry. He looked away, his head dropping a little. In the past, even with his few days off, he used to cherish our family time, but now those moments had almost completely disappeared. With a look of sincere remorse, "I'm sorry," he muttered again to me. In a way, as if filling in the gaps in our family time, Rebecca began coming over on weekends, bringing Wendy, with her cute little bow. She would leave her with us as if to say, "Well, since you're not going out with your family anyway, you're free, right?" I had no choice but to accept Rebecca's selfishness. But even in all this, what kept me going was seeing Carol and Wendy playing so happily together. I sat quietly on the living room sofa, watching Carol and Wendy playing in front of me. Soft sunlight poured through the window, gently illuminating their smiling faces. The two of them sat by the small piano in the corner of the living room, eagerly pressing the keys. "Wendy, try pressing this white key here," Carol said, and Wendy's eyes sparkled as she reached out her finger. When the note sounded, she laughed happily. "I want to do more," she exclaimed, bouncing a little with excitement. Carol smiled at her reaction, looking a bit proud as she said, "This is a song I learned," and began to play a simple melody with her fingers. Watching this scene, I felt warmth filling my heart. I remembered when Carol first started piano lessons at 3 years old. During her first lesson, though nervous, she had been captivated by the piano sound. Now she was able to use that experience to teach Wendy, which filled me with a deep sense of pride. "Okay, now it's Wendy's turn to play." Encouraged by Carol, Wendy hesitated for a moment but then placed her fingers resolutely. A sound filled the room, "Like this here." Carol showed her an example, and Wendy tried to mimic her. Their fingers danced over the keys together. "You're really good, Wendy. You learn so quickly." Wendy smiled shyly, but it seemed she was slowly beginning to feel the joy of creating sound at her own pace. I cherished this moment, savoring the happiness of watching these two grow. The sound of the piano resonated in the room, mingling with Carol and Wendy's laughter. Suddenly, I realized Rebecca's shadow and a changed figure of Bert no longer occupied this moment. I could just focus on enjoying this peaceful time. The music and smiles from Carol and Wendy became a true source of comfort for me. As we spent more weekends like this, Wendy grew closer to me, looking up to me with genuine affection. Sometimes, she would even treat me like a real mom, opening up about her feelings now and then. "I'm sorry I'm always coming over to your house." "Not at all." Carol seems so happy, and it's a joy to watch you improve on the piano, Wendy. There was no lie in my words. Wendy must have had a natural talent for the piano. With just a bit of guidance from Carol and me, she improved remarkably. Today, Carol had piano lessons, and she would be away from home for a few hours. Wendy sat alone at the piano, placing her hands on the keys, looking a bit lonely. She pressed each key carefully, as if trying to convey something with every note that echoed. Noticing a slight shadow in the sound, I walked over casually, only to find Wendy looking up at me with tears in her eyes. What's wrong?" "I'm sorry. I have something I need to apologize for." My heart began to stir uneasily. Wendy, who was always cheerful and lively in front of Carol, seemed different today. Gently rubbing her back, I told her, "It's okay." With tears still streaming, Wendy said, "Mom and Bert, I think they're doing something bad together." What do you mean by that?" I'm sorry. I felt a growing sense of dread, but Wendy's sobs were too strong for her to continue speaking. At that moment, I too just kept rubbing her back, saying, it's okay, and we didn't bring up the topic again. Bert and Rebecca were doing something bad. I couldn't quite picture it, so I didn't think much of it at the time. Perhaps because my mind was filled with thoughts of Carol's upcoming piano recital. Carol, who had been learning piano since the age of 3, was invited by her teacher last month to participate in a recital. It would be Carol's first recital. We even went to a salon for the first time in preparation for the big day. On a rare day when Wendy wasn't around, the 3 of us set out to buy a dress. We got in the car and went around several stores in a large shopping mall. Mom, Dad, come on, hurry. Carol, usually so calm, was a bit excited. Even while we were driving, what kind of dresses will they have? She kept asking me. When I asked, what's your favorite color, Carol? She responded, blue, like the color of the sky. Without hesitation, we went around several stores, searching for a blue dress that Carol would love. This one. This is the one. The sparkle in Carol's eyes was just as bright as the dress that glittered in the light. We asked the clerk if she could try it on. Carol stepped out of the fitting room, her cheeks a little flushed with embarrassment, but the pure joy on her face was impossible to hide. She picked that light blue dress and said, "Thank you. I'll do my best at the recital." With a shy smile, looking back at Bert and me, as I imagined her standing alone on that recital stage in the dress she chose for herself, I felt my heart swell with pride, and my eyes began to tear up. But I wasn't worried. I knew that Carol would do just fine. The smile she wore was full of unwavering confidence. Back at home, I was in the kitchen, preparing dinner and gazing through the little window at the empty flower bed outside. I hoped, with all my heart, that her piano recital would go well. A few days went by, and with their recital approaching, Carol was busy preparing, her excitement contagious enough to fill the whole house. Just watching her was enough to make me happy. But then, on the weekend right before the recital, that peaceful atmosphere shattered. "Mom, help me." I was outside hanging up laundry when Carol's distressed voice pierced the calm. Startled, I dropped the towel I was holding and rushed towards her. There I found Carol sobbing, while Bert stood by, avoiding eye contact. Rebecca was also there, having come over as usual to drop off Wendy. But this time, she had Carol's recital dress in her hand, holding it like some sort of prize. That dress was meant for Carol. Why did Rebecca have it? Puzzled, "What happened, Carol?" I gently asked Carol. Through her tears, Carol said, "Dad gave my dress to Wendy." Her voice trembling with hurt. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and looked up at Bert. He was avoiding my gaze, clearly uncomfortable. Incredulous, I pressed him. "Bert, what's going on?" "Well, I thought Wendy might like to wear a nice dress too," he stammered, trying to explain himself. Rebecca said nothing, only holding the dress by the shoulder, admiring its decorations. Just as I was about to say something, anger bubbling up inside me, Wendy tugged at Rebecca's sleeve. "Mom, stop. Give Carol her dress back." Why? Bert got this for Wendy, didn't he?" "Right, Bert." Rebecca turned her gaze to Bert, who looked slightly flustered. "Well, yay," and mumbled, "That couldn't be true. I had bought that dress for Carol just the other day. How did it end up being given to Wendy?" Wendy broke free from Rebecca's side and clutched at me, looking up with an expression of desperation. Her eyes were wide with fear. Mom told Bert to take Carol's dress. As she spoke with determination, the meaning of her words hit me like a cold shock. Rebecca, maintaining a calm expression, "Well, I wanted Wendy to have a pretty dress too," simply replied, as she smiled and stroked Wendy's head. "Look, Wendy, this dress really suits you. It's perfect with your sweet little face." But Wendy didn't respond to her words. Instead, she looked even more confused. But it's my dress. Carol raised his voice, and Rebecca's gaze fell on him for a moment. So, but look, Wendy looks way more glamorous and adorable, right? Rebecca laughed softly as she held the dress up to Wendy's shoulder. Her action seemed like an attempt to belittle Carol. Your face is a bit plain. No offense, but I really think this dress would look better on Wendy. Tears welled up in Carol's eyes, and seeing that, a wave of anger rose within me. Rebecca, that's such a hurtful thing to say. Oh, Nicola, you don't like what I'm saying. Well, this is just reality. I think beautiful dresses should go to beautiful girls. If I argued now, it would probably turn into a full-blown fight. I glanced over at Bert, who just stood there silently, a look of discomfort on his face. Is Carol crying because she couldn't get this dress in the end? Carol shook her head. No, Dad. I'm sad because my dress was taken away. Don't you think it would look cuter on Wendy? Or do you think you're cuter than Wendy, Carol? Do you think Wendy is somehow lesser than you? Bert, how could you say something like that? I can say with certainty that Wendy is cuter. I want to put cute dresses on cute girls. Isn't that natural? Is there something wrong with my thinking? Rebecca's tone sharpened as she spoke, as though she had won some sort of decisive victory. But I don't want the dress. I looked quietly at Wendy. She was in pain. She was suffering because she couldn't stop Rebecca and Bert from acting out. I just want to play with Carol. Wendy, what are you saying all of a sudden? Rebecca looked surprised, almost theatrically spreading her arms and gazing up at the ceiling. What am I even witnessing here? Wearing a dress is something special, you know. Be confident, don't hold back. If someone offers, you take it. Do you understand? Rebecca glared at Bert. Why is it that Bert can never stand up to Rebecca? As my husband, I felt ashamed. But his next words crossed a line that even Rebecca's influence couldn't excuse. Well, it's true that Wendy would suit the dress better than someone with a face like Carol's. When Bert looked down on Carol and said those words, my world froze. His words felt like cold water splashing over my heart. Since she was a baby, Carol had been my most cherished and beloved treasure in the world. Insulting her was the same as insulting me. Carol's small face turned into a mask of sadness. Thank you for everything. I took Carol's hand, and with a blank expression, I spoke. I started walking up the stairs to prepare to leave the house. Anger and sorrow swirled within me. Carol, who had been frozen, now realized my resolve and glanced back at Bert. Goodbye, old man, I no longer know, she said, and we began preparing to leave the house together. After we stepped outside, I could still hear Rebecca's laughter echoing behind us, but neither Carol nor I stopped. With firm resolve, we walked away, not looking back, as we headed toward a new future. It hadn't even been 10 minutes since Carol and I started walking to the station when my phone started ringing. Bert's name appeared on the screen. My heart began to race. I turned to Carol and said, "It's Dad." Then I answered the phone. "Hello. Hey, what the hell is going on?" Bert's furious voice blasted from the speaker. His tone, sharp and cutting, was filled with unmistakable anger and confusion. I was momentarily speechless, struggling to understand what had happened, but I could already picture him on the other end, likely gripping his head in frustration. Out of nowhere, my boss called and told me I was being fired. "What is going on, Nicola?" Each word from him was like a weight pressing down on me, as I tried to piece together what had happened. Fired? Why? Why now of all times? Why would that happen? "It was right after you two left," my boss called. "Did you know something about this?" Did I know? Those words struck me hard. I remembered Wendy's words from that day. With a troubled expression, "It's like Mom and Bert are up to something bad together," she'd said. Back then, I'd assumed Bert and Rebecca were doing something wrong. The thought unsettled me, so I decided to hire a private investigator. It was painful to dip into my savings, but I felt that even if I confronted Bert directly, it wouldn't get me anywhere. Bert was always taking Rebecca's side, and I'd likely end up with a half-hearted excuse. So I thought an investigation would be the fastest way to uncover any secrets. I was filled with anxiety and fear. Could it be something criminal? I'd worried about that until the investigator finally handed me the results a few days ago. It turned out to be just infidelity, but the affair was bad news. The investigator told my company everything. "You're the only one who would do a background check on me, Nicola. Did you know about the woman I was seeing? Bert had been cheating on me. And not only that, the woman he was seeing was married to a double affair. The worst part was that she was the daughter of the CEO of a client company where Bert worked. So if this went public, it would damage his company as well. I paid for the investigation out of my own savings. When you said you were busy, it was a lie. You were cheating on me, weren't you?" On the other end, I sensed Bert falling silent. My words were likely weighing on him, too. I switched the phone to my other hand and began explaining the details, albeit with a heavy heart. At first, I hadn't even suspected infidelity, but Wendy's words had unsettled me, and I just wanted to put my worries to rest. When I finally got the results of the investigation, I agonized over what to do next. When I contacted the husband of the woman Bert was seeing and shared the details, he was furious and insisted on sending the evidence to Bert's company. I never thought it would escalate to this, that his company would be notified right as we left the house today. My voice was trembling. This situation had spiraled out of control. Not only was the other family affected, but my own family was crumbling, and Bert's job was now in jeopardy. My actions had set so many lives on a new course. Because of you, I've lost everything. Don't think this is over. It's not my fault. You're the one who chose this path. With anger and sadness intermingling, my heart trembled as I argued back. On the other end of the line, his true nature was laid bare, shouting insults at me. As the chilly wind brushed against my cheek, I quickened my pace toward the station. The air was crisp, hinting that winter was just around the corner. In my hand, I held my mobile phone, still connected to Bert. There was a pause on his end, followed by a sound as if he was moving. He likely didn't want Rebecca, who was nearby, to overhear this conversation. "Nicola, listen to me. This is all Rebecca's fault." "Rebecca's fault? How does it excuse you from responsibility? You're the one who cheated," I replied calmly, and Bert lowered his voice. "Actually," he prefaced hesitantly, passing through the station's turnstile, I sat down on a bench and handed Carol some coins, gesturing for her to go buy a drink. Carol gave a small nod, standing by the vending machine a short distance away, contemplating what to buy. It was before Rebecca moved into the neighborhood. I helped her out of kindness with the move, and through her, I met one of her friends. While organizing the room, we somehow hit it off. Let me guess, that friend was dressed to get your attention. Cold anger surged within me. I couldn't just listen silently to Bert explaining how he got close to his affair partner. Through the investigation, I already knew most of the details. The woman's name, face, and where they'd spent their time together. Picturing Bert walking through town at night with the woman I'd seen in those photos, pretending not to know, made me nauseous. My mind had likely already shifted toward separation. That incident with the dress had tipped my heart entirely. Rebecca told me that you had been seeing someone else. Bert's voice shook. Me, having an affair. I work part-time every weekday, and on weekends, I stay home. At my workplace, there are few men, mostly women. There are even days I barely speak to any man besides Bert. I was completely taken aback. I wanted to believe in you, but I just couldn't find the courage to ask you directly. I couldn't shake my doubts. So you're saying that's why you cheated? I get asked out for dinner. Normally, I wouldn't have gone. But at that moment, I thought, if you're enjoying yourself with someone else, then it was just supposed to be a meal, Bert said. He went on to say he still regretted being swayed by the atmosphere and making that mistake. I was tricked by Rebecca. She used it as leverage, threatened me, asked for money, and tried to control me. I couldn't stand Bert attempting to blame his actions on someone else. I didn't know why Rebecca would spread such a lie to Bert about me having an affair. I could empathize with the distress this had caused him, but regardless of the reasons, he needed to take responsibility for crossing that line. I heard the sound of Bert breaking down in tears. I'm a victim. Forgive me. I swear I'll change. The only person who thinks you're a victim is you. Calmly, I got up from the bench. Carol, who had just finished drinking a juice she bought from the vending machine, sat down beside me. The sky was overcast, with a chill in the air that hinted at the approach of winter. A station announcement broke the silence, signaling the train's arrival, and those around us leaned in slightly in anticipation. You're the one who caused this in the first place. You chose to prioritize your affair and people like Rebecca over your family. Oh, Nicola, please, give me one more chance. There was a hint of desperation in Bert's voice. I wished he wouldn't sound so pathetic. Are you really going to leave me? What about Carol? Won't she feel lonely? Won't I ever be able to braid her hair again? Doesn't she need me? A few pigeons rested quietly in a corner of the platform. Sensing the train's arrival, they suddenly took flight, soaring into the sky. The wind stilled, and a quietness settled over the platform. You're incredibly selfish. Carol's nearby, isn't she? Please, ask her if she really wants me gone. Today she has those cute braids, doesn't she? Can you even do that for her? The train approached from the left. It passed us as we stood behind the yellow line, and eventually came to a stop. As the people disembarked, Carol boarded the train ahead of me, still lost in thought. Then, she turned around and unraveled her braids with a defiant shake of her head. Her hair, now loose and curling from the braid, bounced as she turned back, reaching out a hand toward me. Mom, let's go. I always hated these braids. Waiting every morning for him to finish braiding them was a pain. Feels so much better. I knew it wasn't true, but this was Carol's way of showing kindness. I took the first step onto the train. Since phone calls aren't allowed on the train, I pulled my phone away from my ear. Goodbye, Bert. Walk the path you chose. With my own hands, I brought our life together to an end. Everything faded away. Bert's gentle face, his voice, the memories, everything was gone. Mom. Carol squeezed my hand. A faint breeze stirred her hair as it drifted in through the still open train doors. I forced a smile, hoping Carol wouldn't notice my unease. This is not just for her. I have to move forward, for my own sake as well. Later, I had arranged to meet Rebecca. I didn't sympathize with Bert, but I'd long wanted to talk directly to Rebecca, the one who seemed to be the mastermind. If I didn't address this now, I knew I'd regret it later. With that resolve, I sat on a park bench, waiting for her to arrive, feeling a bit nervous. Rebecca eventually appeared. She was dressed as extravagantly as ever, exuding an air of confidence. Why did you call me here? I have something to say to you." I tried to sound resolute. Inside, I was ready to let out all the frustration I had been holding in. "What? Are you here to blame me again?" Rebecca smirked. "Your husband's affair wasn't my fault. You know." She covered her mouth, as if trying to hold back, then burst into exaggerated laughter. "I can't forgive you for filling Bert's head with lies and destroying our family. Are you trying to hide your own shortcomings by blaming me? Bert's affair was a consequence of your neglect," Rebecca taunted me. I took a deep breath, trying to keep calm. "Hiring a private investigator to track the affair. It's like you destroyed your own life." I reported the findings to the authorities. Rebecca tilted her head, looking confused. The sky darkened, as if rain would fall any moment. "I investigated you as well as Bert." Rebecca's eyes widened. I'd asked the investigator to look into both Bert and Rebecca. After all, Wendy said Mom and Bert were doing something wrong. Rebecca herself had never acted suspiciously, even though she was a single mother. It wouldn't be unusual for her to have someone she was seeing. There was nothing strange about that, but the man she was seeing visited her place often, almost like they were living together. "Did you know, to qualify for single mother support, there are certain conditions?" I waited for the investigation results and submitted them to the authorities. That she was living almost full-time with a particular man, that he was a regular employee, possibly supporting her financially, that, apart from leaving Wendy with me, Rebecca sometimes left her alone in the apartment at night to go out or visit nightclubs. They might investigate further based on this. If you've been falsely claiming support, you might be asked to repay it. Rebecca's face showed a troubled expression. At that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't be controlled by this woman any longer. The heavy, dark clouds threatened rain at any moment. "I don't want any more to do with you. Stop ruining my life." I stood up, looking at the stunned Rebecca. As the rain began, I offered her a folding umbrella I took from my bag. "Here, you'll catch a cold." I stood up and left the park, leaving behind Rebecca, sitting dazed on the bench. I knew that was the end of our conflict. I decided to take my first step toward reclaiming my happiness. Months passed, and as winter's chill gradually softened, I prepared for a new life. At first, Bert resisted the divorce, but over time he became unusually quiet, as if accepting his fate. He probably hoped to remarry his lover and become wealthy, but his hopes fell flat. His lover didn't seem as committed to him as he thought. She left soon after the divorce. In the end, he lost his job, his family, and his lover. Rebecca, too, had been found to be spending the child support she received from her ex-husband on nightclub men, and had similarly squandered what she received from Bert. She also seems to have been seeing multiple men at the same time. It appears that the authorities are now asking her to repay the money she has received so far. The siblings are just awful. What was on my mind was Wendy. I was worried about her living with Rebecca, but it seems that Rebecca's ex-husband will take her in. Apparently, he stepped in after hearing that Wendy was reported for neglect because she hadn't been properly taking care of her child. Knowing Wendy's situation, my heart didn't ache for her, because, "Excuse me," Wendy greeted us cheerfully from the doorway. Carol and I were moving into a new life, and as luck would have it, our new home was close to where Wendy was now staying. After all, Carol and Wendy were always close as cousins. Even though I had divorced, I never wanted to break their bond. Carol started piano lessons at her new school. Wendy also started to take an interest in the piano, and they were improving their skills together. I myself was set to work full-time at another branch of the company where I had been working part-time before. For the sake of achieving my dreams, I decided to work not only for my family but also for myself. A quiet dream was growing inside me, where Carol and Wendy would play the piano wearing dresses I had made for them. I looked out the window in the kitchen of our new home. Outside, it was a slightly warm spring scene. What came to my mind were the tulips I had planted at the house I used to share with my ex-husband last winter. I wonder if those bulbs had bloomed. I would probably never know. In the quiet living room, I set up my sewing machine, enjoying the soothing sound of the needle stitching the fabric. As gentle light streamed in through the window, warming the room, I looked up. In the corner of the room, Wendy was carefully seated at the old piano. "It's almost ready, Carol. Listen, okay? Yes, play it for me." Her fingers touched the keys, and the sound resonated. At first, the notes were a bit clumsy. Then, gradually, a melody began to flow. It was part of Bach's minuet. Her fingers glided smoothly as she played the high-pitched melody with her right hand. The fingers moved gracefully across the keys, with the thumb playing a delicate melody. Then the middle and ring fingers pressed the keys in rhythm. At times, the left hand supported the chords, maintaining the balance of the whole. "Well, you've improved so much with just a little practice," Carol said, a bit excitedly. Wendy blushed slightly and continued practicing with a serious expression. Her fingertips danced along with the notes, moving smoothly, as if the music in her heart was appearing on the keys. While I worked the sewing machine, I watched Wendy's focused face. I felt her growth, and a sense of warm music flowed with time, deepening the bond between us. "Oh, by the way, there's going to be a piano recital. This is the announcement." Wendy's fingers bounced lightly on the keys, moving to the melody of the song as if they were dancing. Occasionally, she would smile happily as she immersed herself in the world of music. The paper Carol handed over was an announcement for the music recital. The location was at the community center near the park. The teacher said there's a park near the recital hall with lots of blooming tulips. I stopped the sewing machine and looked at Carol. I can no longer check if the tulips I planted have bloomed, but I can keep watching this child's, Carol's future so closely. I can keep holding hands, walking together. I can keep watching Carol's smile and Wendy's growth. That is a very happy thing. Yes, it sounds very exciting. In my heart, a budding expectation for the arrival of spring had certainly taken root.
Come on, let's go. Get in quickly.
Our family was busy preparing for my sister Amelia's move abroad for her studies. On the morning of her departure, I was abruptly woken up by my mom, who hurried me into a taxi. "What? I thought we were leaving in 3 hours." Confused by the sudden change in schedule, I sat silently in the taxi, unable to say anything.
Huh?
Even though Mom was in such a rush, neither Amelia nor Dad were in the taxi. "All right, please go ahead." However, Mom, who got in the taxi after me, didn't seem to care and the taxi started moving. The place we arrived at wasn't the airport, but my grandparents' house. Mom dragged me out of the taxi and rang the doorbell of my grandparents' house. My grandparents were completely shocked to see their daughter-in-law and granddaughter appear so early in the morning without any notice. But Mom didn't seem to care. "Taking this child along is pointless, so I'm leaving her here," she declared and threw my luggage into the grandparents' house. Then, as she quickly got back into the taxi, "All right, please take care of her. Unless it's a matter of life or death, don't contact me," she said and drove away. I was left standing there, stunned, as my world went dark. So, does being deaf mean I'm a burden? I thought that, despite my disability, we'd eventually understand each other as a family. The despair I felt at that moment was even more painful and heartbreaking than the day I lost my hearing as a child.
I never thought she could do something so cruel. But from now on, you can truly do what you love, Charlotte.
Grandma Sophia said this as she gently hugged my shoulders. I had things I loved to do, but it's impossible for someone like me. It's okay. Charlotte, you'll see. You can do it. Grandma kept encouraging me with her warm, embracing smile. My name is Charlotte Smith, 22 years old. I live with my grandparents, who have been my benefactors, while working at a job I love. Although I'm living a fulfilling life now, my childhood was far from smooth sailing. I started living with my grandparents when I was 13. Before that, I lived with my parents and my sister Amelia, who is 2 years older than me. In our family, starting at the age of 3, it was mandatory to begin piano and violin lessons. This was an unchangeable rule. The lessons were 7 times a week. Initially, they were 30 minutes each, but gradually increased to 45 minutes, then an hour. Before I knew it, my days were filled with music, leaving no time to play with friends outside of kindergarten. However, I never disliked it. Because I was always compared to my 2-year-older sister Amelia, I was driven by the desire to surpass her one day. Moreover, I genuinely loved music. Once, I asked my parents if I could skip a lesson.
This time, my friend is having a birthday party. They said I can come. So can I skip the lesson on Friday?
Having never met friends outside of kindergarten, I was excited and asked my parents with joy. Dad, with a smile.
Invited to a birthday party? That's great.
He replied, which I took as permission to go. I felt increasingly excited.
Yeah. We get to eat cake together and stuff.
I remember answering enthusiastically. I had never been this happy since I started kindergarten. However, the next words from Mom would quickly plunge my feelings from heaven to hell.
There's no way you're skipping your lessons. Stop talking nonsense and eat quickly. You'll have less practice time after dinner.
What?
But Dad just said, skipping lessons is not allowed. And you, don't confuse Charlotte with your words.
Yeah, sorry. I left more than half of my dinner uneaten that day. Naturally, I couldn't focus on practice after dinner and got scolded by Mom 3 times as much as usual. As you can see from this episode, the one who held the reins in our house was Mom. Mom had dreamed of becoming a musician when she was young. However, she couldn't fulfill that dream and placed that hope on Amelia and me. Looking back now, Mom's expectations of us were abnormal. She enrolled us in a kindergarten affiliated with a music college, and after coming home, we had private lessons and self-practice 7 days a week. Instead of family vacations, we attended performances of famous public orchestras, and for birthdays or Christmas, we received CDs of renowned musicians or new music scores. Moreover, the living room was renovated into a lesson room, where we spent almost all our time except for eating, bathing, and sleeping. If we wanted to watch TV or read a book, we had to reduce mistakes in self-practice and finish the practice on time. But it was almost impossible to finish on time, so the days we got what we wished for were very few. I liked playing the piano more than watching TV, so it wasn't too hard for me, but Amelia struggled every day just to watch TV. However, she rarely succeeded and would shed tears of frustration when Mom wasn't looking. Seeing Amelia like that, I began to think, I have to get better for Amelia's sake, and I focused even more on my lessons. One day, when I was 4.5, Mom suddenly said, Amelia is more suited for the violin, so we'll stop her piano lessons at the end of this month. Instead, Charlotte will focus only on the piano from next month. If you master different instruments, You can aim for gold medals as a duo, and it will be glamorous when you become famous. She decided our paths without consulting us. I loved the piano, so I didn't mind, but Amelia, who also loved the piano, was quite shocked. Still, it wasn't allowed for us to voice our opinions to Mom. We just silently ran on the track laid out by Mom. An incident happened in our house when I was 5 years old. One morning I woke up with swollen cheeks and a high fever. I had contracted mumps.
Getting mumps at such a crucial time before the competition. Well, as long as your fever goes down, you can still do self-practice.
Thinking that way, Mom locked me in the lesson room for self-practice as soon as she confirmed that my fever had gone down with antipyretics. I feel dizzy and can't play well. But if I don't do it properly, I'll get scolded again. At that time, I couldn't even tell Mom about my health issues. A few days later, after my fever spiked again, an unbelievable change occurred in my body. Huh? Is Amelia not practicing today? One day, when I woke up, the house was completely silent. There was not even a single sound. Overwhelmed by an inexplicable sense of dread, I rushed down from my room on the second floor to the living room where the practice room was located. Strangely enough, there was not a single sound during this time. It felt like a horror movie, filled with a creeping fear, as I burst open the door to the practice room. And there, I found them.
Charlotte, please keep quiet during practice.
Mom and Amelia were there, practicing as usual. Mom looked very angry at me for running down the stairs in such a hurry. However, her angry words didn't reach my ears at all. Because at that moment, I had completely lost my hearing. Noticing my strange reaction, Mom immediately sensed something was wrong and took me to the hospital. The diagnosis revealed that I had developed severe hearing loss as a rare after-effect of mumps. After the mumps were cured, my hearing improved slightly, but I still needed people to speak loudly and clearly for me to understand. Communicating with family and friends became difficult, and I couldn't hear the piano sounds I loved, plunging me into deep despair. But more than my own despair, Mom was devastated.
I never imagined something like this would happen. But since it has, we have no choice. We'll just have to give up on Charlotte. Give up? What do you mean by give up? From now on, we'll focus all our efforts on Amelia. Luckily, we have 2 daughters. Even if Charlotte can't make it, as long as Amelia becomes a professional, it will be fine. I see. I understand. I'll follow your opinion.
Soon after, I was forced to quit the piano that I loved so much. Without practice sessions, I was free, but with almost no hearing, I couldn't enjoy watching TV or playing with friends. And above all, not being allowed to touch the piano I loved was the hardest thing to bear. The following year, I was not accepted into the private elementary school I had planned to attend and was enrolled in a public school for the deaf. From here, I became a burden to my family. Mom attended all of Amelia's school events but ignored all of mine. When attendance was unavoidable, she would send my paternal grandparents to maintain appearances. But this was the least of it. Mom avoided taking me along for hotel stays for Amelia's competitions, our annual family trips which became concert attendances, and even daily outings like dining out. She constantly passed me off to my grandparents. My grandparents always welcomed me warmly, making sure I didn't feel miserable. In such a family environment, of course, no one in my family learned sign language for me. Unable to communicate with my family, I became increasingly isolated and withdrawn. The only ones who worried about me and helped me were, again, my grandparents. They attended sign language classes with me and learned sign language. Additionally, Grandma Sophia secretly learned lip reading and taught it to me. Thanks to their dedicated support, By the time I graduated from elementary school, I could manage to have conversations even with people who didn't know sign language. Around this time, I began to love my grandparents more than my real parents and wanted to cherish them above all. What solidified the rift between my parents and me was when Amelia was 15 and I was 13.
I knew Amelia could do it. These days, it's crucial for musicians to have international experience. That's why we cut back on her lesson time to make her learn Italian. Now, the path to becoming a musician is finally open.
On the night we received the acceptance letter from the overseas school, Mom was more cheerful than usual as she praised Amelia and announced that we would be moving abroad in a few months. This was the first time I learned that Amelia was planning to study abroad and that we would move once she was accepted. I can't believe they didn't tell me something this important. I can't read lips in Italian. Is sign language the same overseas? I won't be able to see Grandpa and Grandma anymore. As worry and anxiety piled up, I also felt a strange sense of relief. But at least they consider me part of the family. That's good. Thanks to my grandparents, I had developed a resilient spirit in the face of adversity, and I vaguely felt that everything would work out somehow. I thought, I can visit my grandparents once I become independent, and was able to face the move positively. A few months later, on the early morning of our departure day,
Charlotte, wake up! We're leaving! What? No way! Did I oversleep?
It was the first time since I lost my hearing that Mom had to wake me up. At that moment, I mistakenly thought I was 4 years old again, oversleeping for my morning practice, and I jumped out of bed in a panic. But I quickly realized it was just a misunderstanding.
You won't wake up unless I talk this loud?
My throat hurts. Come on, get ready quickly. We're leaving. Mom said this irritably, slamming the door behind her as she left. Her gaze lacked any expectation, affection, or concern for me.
When I was a child, she used to look at me with such shining eyes.
Living up to Mom's expectations had been very tough, but in any form, the love and attention she gave me back then felt strangely nostalgic and precious. As I looked around the empty room, I let myself reminisce a little about my childhood. Then, taking a deep breath, I slowly stood up. I'll find something new in the new place. I'll become someone Mom can be proud of again. As I put on the clothes I had prepared, I made a quiet resolution. However, my feelings were shattered in the next moment.
Come on, let's go! Get in!
When I went downstairs with my luggage, Mom, holding only her handbag, was waiting by the front door.
What? Wasn't the departure 3 hours later?
Though puzzled by the significantly different schedule from what I had been told, I was too scared to talk to the obviously irritated Mom. I was pushed into the waiting taxi outside. Huh? No one's here? Despite all the rushing, Amelia and Dad were not in the taxi.
Okay, let's go.
But Mom, who got in after me, didn't seem to care and had the taxi drive off. The place we arrived at was not the airport, but my grandparents' house. Charlotte, get out. You'll be living here, so unload your luggage and wait. Mom's words and actions at that moment gave me a bad feeling.
No way! You must be kidding! This is too cruel!
Hoping that the thoughts running through my head were just my imagination, I was too shocked to move. But Mom didn't care and pulled me out of the taxi, ringing the doorbell at my grandparents' house. Early in the morning, without any notice, the son's wife and grandchild just appeared, and the two of them were simply stunned. However, Mom didn't seem to mind.
This child is pointless to bring along, so I'm leaving her here,
she declared, throwing my belongings into my grandparents' house. Then, quickly getting into the taxi. All right, please take care of her. Unless it's a matter of life or death, don't contact me." With just those words, she drove away. And indeed, they moved overseas, just the three of them. Does being deaf mean I'm a burden? Is it because I can't become a musician that I'm being abandoned? Even though my beloved piano was taken away, even though I could no longer have proper conversations, even though I was no longer taken out, I thought we would eventually understand each other because we were family. Just earlier, I had decided to try my best once more to gain Mom's approval. The despair at that moment was more painful and sad than the day I lost my hearing. However, I didn't sink into depression again. That was thanks to my grandma, Sophia.
I never thought she could do something so awful. But from now on, Charlotte, you can truly do what you love.
What I love?
Yes. Not because someone tells you to, but because Charlotte wants to do it. You had something you wanted to do, right?
I did, but it's impossible for someone like me.
It's okay. Charlotte, you'll see. You can do it.
Grandma said, encouraging me with a gentle and encompassing smile. Encouraged by Grandma, I started playing the piano again. The sound of the piano, which I had not been allowed to touch for years, stimulated my remaining hearing to the fullest.
I want to play the piano again. Just like back then.
My shrunken heart exploded with growth. And from that moment on, my days filled with piano began again. 9 years later, I was a senior at a music college. Although it had been more challenging than usual to get in, I felt a sense of fulfillment and joy in a life where I loved music and could talk about it with friends who shared my passion. Also, since entering college, I had ventured into songwriting and composing, discovering the joy of learning music from new perspectives. When I was abandoned at my grandparents' house at 13, I felt like I had hit rock bottom, but thinking of it as the trigger that made me who I am now, it's not so painful. I gained enough strength and confidence to think this way. Everything was going smoothly. Then one day, something unexpected happened. Mom, who had been out of touch for years, appeared before me. Just like when she abandoned me 9 years ago, she suddenly showed up at my university without any notice. And when she saw me, she beamed with a completely different smile.
Charlotte! Congratulations on winning the international piano competition. You really are my child.
She started to gush. I was bewildered and couldn't use sign language or speak. Then, Mom, misunderstanding something, grabbed my hands tightly. Sorry to surprise you. I flew over as soon as I heard about you on the news. Saying this, she tried to hug me. I instinctively rejected it with all my strength. Mom let out a small, "Huh?" but quickly returned to her beaming smile.
Thank you so much for fulfilling my dream of becoming a musician. Charlotte, you're amazing. From now on, I'll fully support you. I'll help with both work and personal life. Let's live together from now on,
she said, approaching me. Mom's strange gaze pierced through me. I felt a chill run down my spine for the first time in my life. Just as I was desperately wishing to escape, I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder from behind. When I turned around, there was my college friend, standing with a worried expression. Using sign language, my friend asked, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I replied in sign language, "I'm troubled by a stranger talking to me. Can you walk me home?" My friend nodded vigorously, stepping between Mom and me. "We have plans to go out, so excuse us," she told Mom, then took my hand and led me away from the scene. Mom is likely still unfamiliar with sign language. She stood there in stunned silence.
Was Mom always this weird?
Thanks to living apart, I finally realized just how abnormal my mother was at this age. and for the first time, I felt I never wanted to be involved with her again. However, contrary to my feelings, a few days later, Mom showed up at my grandparents' house with Dad and Amelia in tow. "I'm sorry I startled you the other day. Actually, we're planning to return to America soon, so Charlotte, you'll be living with us from now on," Mom said, smiling brightly but still using her authoritative tone. Behind her, Dad stood weakly, and Amelia had her shoulders hunched, just like before. Pretending not to understand what she was saying, I remained silent on purpose. Then Mom started praising me out of nowhere. But the content was bizarre, talking about how my childhood's elite education bore fruit or how I inherited her genes, which allowed my talents to flourish even from afar. To make matters worse, she belittled Amelia, saying she failed at the violin and wasn't good at piano either, thus had no talent, calling it a waste of time and money. This kind of talk went on for over 10 minutes, and eventually, Amelia broke down in tears. Seeing Amelia like that brought back painful memories of when I lost my hearing at 5 and had my piano taken away. I felt a deep anger towards Mom, who was manipulating our lives for her own values. But Mom, too, was growing irritated by my silence. Still, she must have wanted to stay on my good side. With a creepy smile that only touched her lips, she started typing something on her phone. The screen read,
"You're the best musician. That's why I came to get you."
I deliberately responded in sign language.
"I won't go with you."
Unable to understand sign language, Mom forced a smile, her mouth twitching. She showed me the screen again, now saying,
"Let's go home together."
With a sigh, I typed on my phone, "I'm staying here because I'm worried about grandparents." Mom's smile vanished at my unsatisfactory response. But a few seconds later, she seemed to realize something and smiled again. Turning to Grandma next to me, she made an unbelievable suggestion.
"That's it. We'll leave Amelia here from now on. That way, Charlotte can focus on her music, and I can fully support her. Amelia can finally be useful to the family. Mother, could you tell Charlotte that with Amelia here, there's nothing to worry about?"
When Mom made her selfish proposal, I felt something snap inside me.
"Stop saying selfish things. I don't need support from a mother who abandoned me, and I have no intention of leaving this house. Don't ever show your face in front of us again."
Before I knew it, I was shouting at Mom for the first time in my life. Mom, who had assumed no one could hear the conversation, and everyone else in the room fell silent for a moment. But even then, Mom didn't back down at all.
"What? You don't need support? That's impossible. Because you are my daughter. You are going to become a great musician with me. And pretending you can't hear, too. You're not a child anymore, so stop being selfish." "I'm not pretending. I read the conversation from your lip movements. And not learning sign language to live with someone who is deaf is out of the question. Besides, you abandoned me 9 years ago, so don't act like a mother now."
How dare you say that to your parent?
It's your grandparents' fault. Fine, I'll correct that foul mouth of yours. Come on. Pack your things quickly. I'm not planning to live with you, and I have no intention of getting involved with you in the future. Please leave. There you go again. Fine, I'll pack your things myself.
Mom, realizing she couldn't persuade me, started forcing her way into the house. I desperately tried to stop Mom, who was no longer capable of making rational decisions. Then, Grandma, who had been silently watching, stood in front of Mom with a phone in hand. With a slightly intimidating voice, she said,
"If you insist on entering the house, I'll call the police for trespassing."
And maybe file a restraining order too. Grandma, who I had only ever seen smiling gently, looked shockingly stern at that moment. Even Mom seemed to snap out of it. She sat down weakly. Why? Why is it turning out like this? And began to cry. Everyone, including Amelia and even Dad, just watched silently. In the end, Grandpa scolded Dad, saying,
"You're making a fuss, so go home."
Then, Dad, with Amelia's help, dragged Mom away. I wondered what Dad thought of us. Watching Dad's exhausted back as he left, a thought crossed my mind, but I felt like I would never get a chance to ask him. Grandma gently patted my shoulder with her usual gentle smile.
"Do you remember when I said you'd understand someday?"
She asked. I nodded slightly and said, "Yes." Then Grandma, with a faraway look in her eyes, said, "That is now. Children are not tools for their parents. Forcing them to do something almost never leads to success. You always had a talent for music. Even though you became deaf and faced difficulties, I believed you would overcome them because you're a hard worker." "Thank you, Grandma." I hugged Grandma tightly and cried just a little. I felt truly grateful to be their grandchild. It was a moment when I thought that from the bottom of my heart. Even after that, Mom persistently visited us, but we never responded. No matter how cold we were, Mom's desire for me to become a musician only seemed to grow stronger, as if it were worsening. One day, Dad unexpectedly visited my grandparents' house. When Grandpa asked, "Is something wrong?" Dad, looking worn out, replied,
"I'm looking for Amelia."
After Grandpa pressed for more details, he found out that Amelia's situation had become even more dire than before.
"You can't even participate in the competition."
"I'm sorry, Mom. I'm really sorry."
"I've dedicated my money, my time, my entire life. So why aren't you a musician yet?"
Mom, who is obsessed with Amelia becoming a musician, had started to harshly scold Amelia for not showing any results. Amelia, who had endured more than enough until now, finally reached her breaking point with this latest incident. And then one day, she eloped with a man who had been coming in and out of our house as a piano tuner.
"She's only known him for a few months. She'll only end up suffering if she ran off with a man she hardly knows. That's why I thought I'd bring her back and talk some sense into her."
Dad seemed genuinely worried about Amelia in his own way. But when I heard this story, I felt a strange sense of relief. I hope this means Amelia can finally start her own life. That's what I found myself thinking. In the end, Amelia remains missing to this day. Though it's very worrying not being able to confirm her safety, I can't help but wish she's found happiness somewhere far from Mom's reach. On the other hand, Mom, who had been abandoned not only by me but also by Amelia, reportedly shut herself in at home and started living like a recluse, according to Dad. Apparently, she would yell at Dad and throw things at him at every opportunity. Unable to endure such a life, Dad finally left, leaving behind only a completed divorce form. When she showed up at our grandparents' house in a panic, with a desperate look in her eyes, "Now I have no one but Charlotte. Please, give me Charlotte back." I was horrified when she said that. And realizing that Mom would never change, no matter what happened, made me feel so sad. Soon after Dad left, Mom started working to support herself, but none of the jobs lasted long, and she kept changing jobs. And every month, she would visit our grandparents' house and shout,
"Give Charlotte back!"
To protect my grandparents' lives, I made a bold suggestion. That was to move away. With my stable income as a professional pianist, I thought we could live safely and comfortably together. At first, my grandparents were hesitant, but when I expressed my feelings, they happily agreed to the move. So now, my grandparents and I live peacefully in an apartment in the urban area. With the move, we also sold my grandparents' land, so we will never return to that town. I felt like I had finally taken control of my life with this move. And it seemed the same was true for my grandparents. They were very happy with the peaceful days. Though both have grown older and need to visit the hospital more often, they never miss my concerts. And without fail, they would praise me.
It was amazing. That's our Charlotte.
This moment makes me the happiest of all. I intend to continue cherishing my grandparents, who have always been there for me. And I secretly wish to give back the same amount of love they've given me. After a refreshing 2-day getaway, my husband and I decided to head back home, but not before picking up some souvenirs for John and his mother, Mary. Instead of going straight home, I thought it would be nice to drop off the gifts at Mary's place first since it was on the way. I had already let John know we were stopping by, but as we pulled up to the house, an eerie stillness hung in the air. Despite the darkening sky, not a single light illuminated the windows, and an unsettling silence enveloped the property. Something doesn't feel right, I muttered, a sense of unease creeping over me.
Yeah, I wonder what's going on. Watch your step,
my daughter cautioned as we carefully navigated the snowy path to Mary's front door, mindful not to slip on any hidden patches of ice. As we entered the house, the atmosphere felt charged with a recent human presence, yet the dimly lit interior revealed a disarray of scattered belongings. As if someone had hastily fled the premises. "Mom, it's kinda creepy," Jessica whispered, her voice trembling slightly.
I know, honey. Do you want to wait outside?
I asked, but she shook her head, determined to stay by my side as we hesitantly ventured further into the house.
Hello! It's Emily. Is anybody home?
I called out, my voice echoing through the empty rooms, but no response came. We made our way to the bedroom where Mary would typically be resting, and as we pushed open the door, a biting chill greeted us, far colder than any indoor space should be. There, in the far corner of the room, lay Mary, her face ashen and her body wrapped tightly in a blanket.
Oh my God! Mary!
I gasped, rushing to her side and desperately trying to rouse her, but her skin was frighteningly cold to the touch. I'm Emily. Your average housewife juggling the demands of raising a child and working a part-time job. My husband, John, is an office worker at a large corporation, often putting in long hours late into the night. Our daughter, Jessica, is a responsible high school student who always goes out of her way to help me, whether it's preparing her own lunch or assisting with household chores. Just down the street lives John's mother, Mary, a woman in her 70s. A few years ago, she fell ill and has been bedridden ever since, leaving me to care for her for the past 5 years. Balancing my part-time job with regular visits to Mary's house to provide care has been incredibly challenging. A responsibility that should have fallen on John's shoulders. But with his demanding work schedule and our comfortable financial situation, I never complained. Besides, from the moment I married John, Mary had always treated me with such kindness, as if we shared a special connection. When Jessica was born, she stepped in to offer guidance and support when I felt overwhelmed and unsure, even becoming a playmate for our little girl. For that, I am eternally grateful. So, I quietly continued to care for her, driven by a deep sense of obligation to repay her, even if only in some small way, for all that she had done for our family. Even so, I had hoped John would at least help out on his days off. You're off today, right? I was wondering if you could help with Mary's care. I tentatively asked him. But his response was always the same.
Sorry, I can't. I'm really busy.
I have to go into work today, even though it's a holiday. So please, take care of Mom for me. He never made any effort to assist with her care. To be fair, he was working almost non-stop, just as he said. With a schedule like that, you'd think he'd collapse from exhaustion, but John always came home late at night in high spirits. Seeing him like that, I figured he must really love his job. I didn't know the specifics of what he did, but I did receive a call from a woman named Sarah once. She said she was a colleague of my husband's, and when John heard about it, he rushed back to work even though he had just gotten home. If he was working that hard without complaint, I couldn't bring myself to demand that he please help with the caregiving. So, I never grumbled in front of my family and focused on providing devoted care while managing the household chores. I'm so sorry about this. If I wasn't in this condition, I wouldn't be causing you so much trouble, Emily. Mary would apologize every time she saw me. It's all right. We're family, aren't we? If it gets to be too much, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Oh, don't be silly. It's no trouble at all. Thank you, dear.
I meant every word, and she seemed to be speaking from the heart as well. To avoid putting any extra strain on me, she would try to change positions on her own, doing what she could to make caregiving easier for me. As I was tending to Mary, the door to her house opened, and Jessica walked in.
Mom, I'll take over from here. You should get some rest,
she said, immediately trying to help with the caregiving.
Now, hold on a minute. Don't you have entrance exams to study for? But Mom, you were feeling dizzy the other day. You really should take a break.
No matter what I said, Jessica wouldn't listen. She pushed me aside and started taking care of Mary. Now Jessica's involved too. I'm so terribly sorry for all the trouble, Mary said, looking even more apologetic.
Don't worry about it. Actually, I'd love to hear more stories about the old days.
When Jessica was little, John and I were so busy that Mary often looked after her. That's why, even now, Jessica adores her grandmother. So, in between studying for her exams, she actively helps out with the caregiving. Normally, I should be telling her to focus on her studies, but as Jessica pointed out, I had been feeling fatigued these past few days. I decided to gratefully accept my daughter's kindness.
All right, I'll take a short break. Let me know if anything comes up. Mary, I hope that's okay with you. Got it. I'll call you if we need anything.
I'm sorry about this. Thank you, Jessica. I headed to the bedroom and laid down. Almost immediately, I felt my consciousness drifting away.
Just 20 minutes. No, I'll rest for 30 minutes. Then, I'll switch with Jessica,
I thought to myself as I drifted off to sleep. In the end, I slept for nearly an hour, not just 30 minutes. This was my life now. My body was exhausted, but I never considered myself unhappy. Even though he didn't help out much, John was working really hard at his job, Jessica was a kind girl, and Mary was a wonderful person. I had no intention of complaining, and I didn't think this lifestyle would continue forever. Mary's health was visibly declining, and both Jessica and I could sense that she didn't have much time left. So, to ensure we had no regrets, I wanted to focus on her care for now. Then, one day, something surprising happened. When John came home, he said,
Emily, I got these from work,
and handed me some travel vouchers.
Oh my, what are these for? Did you do something good? My boss at work gave them to me. I guess it's his way of telling me to take a break sometimes. As if he doesn't know how busy I am. But that's great, isn't it? Let's go.
Yay! Let's go on a trip. Jessica chimed in, having overheard our conversation. When I said that, John's expression turned somber as he shook his head.
I can't. It's impossible for me to go. But it would be a waste to throw them away, so why don't you two go? You should take a break too, every once in a while.
I was taken aback when I heard that. He had never spoken such kind words to me before. Of course, I wanted to go on the trip, but I had some concerns. I'd love to, but
there's Mary's care to think about. I'll handle that. I really should be the one looking after Mom, anyway.
Jessica and I couldn't help but exchange glances. We were happy that John was offering to do this, but we were worried about leaving Mary's care to him when he wasn't very experienced. Jessica seemed to share my concerns and asked,
Dad, are you sure? You haven't done it much before.
John seemed irritated as he scoffed.
Don't underestimate me. I can handle something like this.
Putting on a brave front. Hey, maybe we should forget about the trip. It could be tough if something happens. I began to say.
You guys are so annoying.
John suddenly exploded in anger.
What's the deal? I'm trying to be nice here. Do you really have that little faith in me? You think I'm that unreliable? Well, do you? Spit it out.
I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. I stammered.
We didn't mean anything by it.
Jessica added, both of us cowering in the face of his outburst. Seeing us so frightened, John smiled, seemingly satisfied.
That's what I thought. There's no need to worry. It's only for one night, anyway. It's not like I'm telling you to go on a trip around the world.
When he put it that way, we couldn't argue.
Well, then.
Since we have the chance, why don't we go? Something about the way John was so adamant about us taking this trip didn't sit right with me. But not wanting to anger him further, we decided to go. The destination was a tourist spot not too far from here, and we were able to stay at a fairly nice hotel. I was worried about Mary, but John wasn't a child, so I figured he'd manage somehow. If anything happened, he'd contact us, and we had a way to get back quickly. Around that time, a cold wave had brought heavy snowfall, turning the entire landscape into a beautiful winter wonderland. Jessica seemed to be enjoying herself, but being the diligent girl she had brought her study materials to the room. We walked through the snow-covered streets, enjoyed delicious meals, and had a wonderful time. After 2 days, feeling completely refreshed in both body and mind, we bought souvenirs for John and Mary and decided to head back. We could have gone straight home, but since Mary's house was closer, I thought I'd drop off her souvenir first. I had let John know in advance that we were heading to Mary's place, but when we arrived, there was no sign of anyone. It was already getting dark, but not a single light was on, and an eerie stillness hung in the air. Something seems off. I murmured uneasily.
Yeah, I wonder what's going on. Watch your step.
Jessica replied as we trudged through the snow, careful not to slip on any ice, and opened the front door to Mary's house. Inside, there was a lingering sense that someone had been there recently, but it was dark, and objects were strewn across the floor. It looked as if someone had left in a hurry. Mom, it's kinda creepy. Jessica whispered.
I know. Do you want to wait outside?
However, Jessica refused, so the two of us cautiously entered the house.
Hello! Are you here? It's Emily!
I called out in a loud voice, but there was no response. We slowly made our way further inside and opened the door to the room where Mary would likely be sleeping. It was so cold, it hardly felt like we were indoors. Looking towards the back of the room, we saw Mary wrapped in a blanket, her face deathly pale.
Oh my God! Mary!
I gasped, rushing to her side and trying to rouse her, but her body was frighteningly cold. Still, she was breathing faintly and let out a groan in response to my calls.
Jessica! Call an ambulance!
I shouted to my daughter, who stood frozen in shock by the door. Glancing around the room, I noticed that, for some reason, the window was open. No wonder it was so cold. I quickly closed the window, turned on the heater, and wrapped the clothes I was wearing around Mary's body.
Mary, it's going to be okay. Help is on the way.
I reassured her. Just as I said those words, I heard the faint sound of sirens in the distance.
What? They're here already?
I marveled.
No way.
Jessica muttered in disbelief. As the sirens grew louder, they stopped right in front of Mary's house. Paramedics immediately entered through the front door.
Paramedics. Is everyone all right?
One of them called out. Hearing their voice, I felt a wave of relief wash over me.
Oh, thank goodness. We're in here. Please hurry.
I shouted back. The paramedics quickly made their way to the room and began treating Mary. This looks like hypothermia. We need to transport her immediately. And you are? One of them asked, turning to me.
I'm Emily, her daughter-in-law. And this is my daughter, Jessica.
I explained. I see. Well then, let's have your daughter Jessica accompany us. Is that all right? The paramedic suggested, eyeing me suspiciously for some reason. A sense of unease began to creep over me. That's fine, but why? I asked, puzzled by his request. I'll explain everything. A new voice chimed in. A man in a suit entered the room and showed me his police badge. The police? What's going on? We'll take care of the transport then. We'll leave the rest to you, the paramedic said, turning to the officer. Mom. Jessica looked at me, her expression on the verge of tears. I had no idea what was happening, but I reminded myself to stay strong.
It's okay, Jessica. I'll be fine. You go and stay with Mary.
Jessica nodded and climbed into the ambulance, which headed off to the hospital. Now, would you mind coming down to the station with me? The officer asked. I was shocked to hear him mention the police station. I never thought I'd hear a line like that outside of a TV drama, especially when I couldn't recall doing anything wrong.
Wait a minute. Why is this happening?
We received a call from your husband, John. He said his wife was trying to kill his mother. And when we arrived, this is what we found. Hearing his explanation, I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. If, God forbid, something happened to Mary, would I be considered the culprit?
That's not true. There's no way. There must be some mistake. Please, investigate properly.
I pleaded desperately, but he simply sighed, looking annoyed. That's why we need you to come down to the station, he said. In the end, unable to resist, I found myself being led into a police car. I had lived an honest life up until now, and it never crossed my mind that I'd find myself in a situation like this. As I gazed out the window, overcome with despair, I saw the colorful reflections of traffic lights on the snow-covered ground. Suddenly, I caught sight of children playing in the snow and couldn't help but shed a tear. The winter landscape that I had enjoyed during our trip now felt incredibly cold and harsh. Thinking about what lay ahead, a sudden fear gripped me. I could picture myself being featured on the news. The woman on your screen now is the suspect, Emily. Emily was arrested yesterday evening on suspicion of attempting to murder her bedridden mother-in-law. If that happened to me, what would become of Jessica? As the daughter of a criminal, her chances of getting into college, let alone her entire future, would be ruined. But I was innocent. As these thoughts raced through my mind, my heart began to pound faster, and I felt an overwhelming urge to flee. I felt like I was losing my mind, but I desperately tried to keep myself together. If I did something rash now, it would be like admitting I was the culprit. If they investigated properly, they'd surely realize I was innocent in no time. So, for now, I had no choice but to cooperate. The police car swayed as it slowly made its way through the snowy streets. Finally arriving at the police station, I was immediately taken to an interrogation room. Now, explain to me. What have you been doing up until now?
I was on a trip. Just my daughter and me. We got back this evening.
Is there anyone who can corroborate that?
We stayed at a hotel, so if you ask them, they should be able to confirm it.
I tried to maintain a composed demeanor. If I appeared too flustered, that alone might raise suspicions. Did your husband usually take care of his mother?
I've been the one caring for her this whole time. My husband only looked after her these past 2 days.
I see. We'll look into that.
What about my husband? How is he doing?
Actually, his current whereabouts are unknown.
What? Why?
Hearing that John was missing, I grew anxious. What on earth could have happened to him? We have a search underway, so I'm sure he'll turn up eventually.
So, what's going to happen to me?
Unfortunately, we'll need you to stay in a holding cell tonight.
You can't be serious. I haven't done anything.
That may be so, but we have to consider the worst-case scenario. You're still a suspect. If we release you, there's a chance you could destroy evidence. I was overcome with despair. They were treating me like a full-fledged criminal. Was I going to be sent to prison without even being allowed to go home? In the end, I spent that night in a holding cell. Naturally, I wasn't permitted to contact anyone on the outside. Was Mary okay? What had become of Jessica? These thoughts consumed me, and I couldn't get a wink of sleep. The following day, the detective from before came to see me. Sorry to keep you waiting. Your innocence has been proven, so you're free to go. With those words, I was allowed to leave.
Thank goodness. Thank you so much.
We were able to confirm your story with the hotel you stayed at. Your daughter cooperated with us as well. As we walked down the hallway, I chatted with him about various things.
So it was her that proved my innocence.
That's right. We were also able to confirm that you and your family had been providing care on a regular basis through interviews with a care manager and your neighbors.
I see. And what about my husband?
When I asked, he hesitated for a moment before simply saying, "Well, we still haven't located him yet." While it was clear that John had been at Mary's house, why he had left her unattended for such a long time remained a mystery. Stepping outside, I found Jessica and the female care manager waiting for me.
Jessica! Mom!
It had only been a day, but it felt like we hadn't seen each other in years.
I heard from the police. You worked so hard to prove my innocence.
Jessica nodded, tears welling up in her eyes.
I did. It was really tough. But it's okay now. And Grandma is going to be all right too. She won't be able to leave the hospital for a while, though.
Hearing that, I felt a profound sense of relief. As long as Mary was safe, that was all that mattered. We decided to head home for the time being. The care manager gave us a ride, and we finally arrived at our house. It seemed Jessica had already brought our luggage over from Mary's place. After saying goodbye to the care manager and sorting through our belongings, I was suddenly hit by an overwhelming wave of exhaustion.
Seriously, what is that man doing? At this rate, I don't even know why we went on this trip.
I'm exhausted too. Let's get some rest. We each laid down, ready to drift off to sleep. It was already past 1 p.m. Having gotten no sleep the night before, I quickly grew drowsy. Just then, the doorbell rang. Startled, I got up and looked at the monitor to see the police officer from earlier standing there.
Sorry to bother you so suddenly.
I immediately unlocked the front door.
What is it?
Well, the thing is, we've received reports of a suspicious individual believed to be John. It seems he may be armed with a weapon. Armed with a weapon. The moment I heard those words, a chill ran down my spine.
We're not entirely sure yet, but as a precaution, we'll be stationing officers around your house. Please refrain from going out unless absolutely necessary. And make sure to keep your doors locked tight.
With that, he closed the door. I immediately explained the situation to Jessica, and we checked all the locks in the house. Fortunately, nothing was left open, so we could breathe a small sigh of relief for now. However, not knowing when John might show up at the house, I was once again plunged into the depths of anxiety. Every little sound that I normally wouldn't have noticed, every faint voice from outside, set my body on edge. Naturally, there was no way we could sleep in this situation, so Jessica and I huddled close together, quietly passing the time.
Hey, Mom. This is all just a misunderstanding, right? Dad wouldn't do something like that, would he?
Of course not.
But we need to be careful.
I didn't want to believe that John would resort to violence either, but there was always the possibility, however slim. To begin with, I had no idea what John was trying to accomplish or why he had tried to pin the crime on me. I couldn't even begin to predict what he might do next. That's why we had to be cautious. If the time came, I would at least make sure to protect Jessica. I squeezed her hand, steeling my resolve. From that point on, time seemed to crawl by at an agonizingly slow pace. As evening gradually approached, my smartphone rang with a call from the police.
Hello? John was found safe and sound at a hotel a short while ago. He's being questioned at the police station now, so you can rest easy.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank you so much. I hung up after saying just that.
They found Dad?
It seems so. Now we can finally get some proper rest. Feeling both relieved and utterly exhausted, we promptly fell asleep. We ended up sleeping straight through until around noon the following day. When I woke up, Jessica had already left for school, leaving only a note behind. Around midday, I received another call from the police, and the whole truth came to light. When they apprehended John at the hotel, he was apparently with Sarah, the woman I heard the name once before. I had been under the impression that she was merely John's colleague, but it turns out the two of them had been having an affair for quite some time. He had been lying about working on holidays to secretly meet up with her. While we were away on our trip, John had secretly brought Sarah over to Mary's house. The two of them had apparently been enjoying their night together when John made a huge mistake. In an effort to air out the room, he turned off the heat in Mary's room and even opened the window. However, he got so caught up in his time with Sarah that he completely forgot about it. Mary tried her best to close the window, but in her frail condition, there was nothing she could do but endure the cold. By the time John remembered, she was already cold to the touch, and he panicked, mistakenly thinking she had passed away. That's when he saw my text message saying I was coming to her house, and he decided to pin the crime on me. He called an ambulance, reported it to the police, and then hurriedly packed his bags and fled with Sarah. That's why the house was in disarray when we arrived at Mary's place, and why the ambulance showed up at just the right time. Of course, such a terrible plan was never going to work, and I was released soon after. John had been racking his brain, trying to find a way out of this predicament, but there was nothing he could do. Eventually, the police caught up with him, and the two lovebirds were arrested together. By the way, the report about a suspicious individual wielding a weapon turned out to be someone else entirely, and they didn't even have a weapon on them. It was a troubling situation, but I'm so glad we didn't end up in any real danger. However, after hearing the whole story, I was absolutely furious with John. It wasn't just about him pushing the caregiving responsibilities onto me or having an affair. Of course, those things were unforgivable too, but more than anything, I couldn't forgive him for putting Mary's life at risk. I couldn't bear the thought of continuing to live with a man who would treat his own mother so cruelly. So, I decided to hire a lawyer and go through with divorcing him. That said, since both John and Sarah were arrested for abandoning a dependent resulting in death, the divorce proceedings went smoothly. We finalized the divorce without issue, and I demanded a substantial sum in compensation from both of them. Sarah's parents apologized to us and shouldered the compensation payment from the divorce trial. As for John, in addition to the division of assets, I made sure he paid for Jessica's college expenses and the remaining child support. Their sentences were somewhat lighter since Mary managed to survive, but they still received suspended prison sentences. Naturally, they were fired from their jobs, and with their actions becoming public knowledge, they'll likely have to live a quiet life for the foreseeable future. As for John, not only Mary but his other relatives have also cut ties with him. There's no doubt he'll be spending the rest of his life in solitude. With that, everything was resolved, but so much had happened over the past few months that it was an incredibly busy time. Finally, Mary was cleared to leave the hospital, and the three of us started living together again. I feel terrible for causing you so much trouble again. I guess I'm tougher than I look, Mary said, still seeming hesitant about receiving care.
What are you talking about? You don't need to worry about that.
But Emily, you got divorced, didn't you? Doesn't that make me an outsider? You don't need to waste your time on someone like me.
That may be true, but the gratitude I feel for all the support you've given us over the years hasn't changed. We'll be family until the very end. Right, Jessica? Yeah, of course we will. So, Grandma, you can lean on us whenever you need to.
Hearing our words, tears began to stream down her face.
Oh, thank you. I really am a lucky woman. I'm so glad I'm alive.
After that, our days passed peacefully, without any major incidents. Mary's condition stabilized, and Jessica successfully got into college, becoming a university student. I thought our happy life together would continue on like this forever, but that wasn't meant to be. A few years later, Mary's health deteriorated further, and finally, on a warm spring day, she passed away peacefully. Her face looked so serene that I couldn't help but wonder if I'd managed to repay even a little bit of the kindness she'd shown me. We held a funeral and were able to see her off without any issues. John attended the funeral as well, but we didn't speak. As long as he's alive and well somewhere, that's enough for me. As Jessica and I were going through Mary's belongings in her room, we found a will. It seems she had secretly written it, expressing her gratitude to us and leaving us all of her assets. Reading it, Jessica and I quietly shed tears. We were truly glad that we had been able to see her off properly. Mary may be gone now, but we've decided to live happily, for her sake as well as our own.
I forgot to buy it.
My husband, William, laughed merrily as soon as I cornered him. He must have deliberately not bought only my ticket.
Oh, William, you klutz.
Carol, my mother-in-law, was laughing so hard, holding her stomach, as she called out to William. Everyone was laughing uproariously, and I felt really sick.
That's fine. I'll just go home,
I said with a sigh.
Do that. A fancy hotel doesn't suit someone like you, right? It's for the better.
William was smiling.
Don't go dining out alone and splurge, okay? I'll be checking the receipts afterward,
Carol said with a laugh and a condescending tone.
All right, now that it's decided, let's hurry and go.
Donald, my father-in-law, cheerfully called out to William and his wife, and they headed to the boarding gate. How low do these people think of me? I can never forgive them. I took out my mobile phone and called someone. Surely, the three of them will regret this. I am Jessica. I turned 50 this year. Currently, I live with my husband, William. Donald and Carol live nearby, about a 15-minute walk from our house. I met William over 20 years after becoming a working adult. In my current job, I'm in charge of sales. Recently, I haven't been able to achieve my sales targets, and going to work every day has been depressing. Naturally, my spirits are low. Under such circumstances, sales don't follow. Being scolded by my boss for poor sales performance only made me dread going to work more. I felt like I was caught in a negative loop. That's when I met William. We met in the break room of the 10-story building where I work. This building houses several companies, and there's a communal break room on the 3rd floor. During lunch break, female employees from other floors would eat sandwiches they brought. After being scolded by my boss, I would often rest in this break room. And today, after failing to meet my sales targets again and being loudly scolded by my boss in front of everyone, I was sitting alone on a chair, feeling down. Then William approached me. Are you okay? You look so gloomy. Actually, having been approached by William, whom I met for the first time, I confided in him about my work troubles. Perhaps because William was from a different company, I felt comfortable talking to him. William listened to me with empathy. After our conversation, William said to me,
From now on, I'll listen to you. So, let's exchange contact information.
Thank you so much. I nearly cried from William's kindness, but managed to answer with a smile. I think I already liked William at that time. William and I gradually became close. We started dating and, after a while, began a relationship. Then, a year into our relationship, William proposed, and we decided to get married. As soon as we decided to marry, we met Donald and Carol.
We're looking forward to it. As for helping us out, just do what you can without overdoing it.
Carol was smiling and seemed kind.
Once you marry William, let's all go on a trip together,
Donald said, laughing heartily. Donald seemed like a regular person, and I felt reassured. Then the two of us decided not to have children. I was in my late 40s when I married William. Having a child at this point would put a lot of strain on my body. Besides, William also said,
I want to live a life with some financial leeway. I also want to take care of my parents.
I agreed with William's suggestion, wanting to work hard at my job too. And so, we bought a new house together. We combined our savings to buy it outright, though it was a small house. Would become even happier. I believed so. However, I came to realize that it was all an illusion. Since getting married, I've been frequently troubled by Donald and Carol. For example, their sudden visits. Ever since William and I bought our house and started living there, Donald and Carol would come over without contacting us first. Then, they would point out in detail how I was lacking as a housewife. At worst, they would open the fridge and closets without permission and check their contents. Then they would scold me while screaming.
What's with this fridge? There's only cheap supermarket beef in here. You're feeding this to William?
Carol would scream upon opening the fridge today, as usual. Well, we can't exactly buy expensive meat all the time. We used up our savings because we bought the house outright. That's why we're trying to save as much as possible. So, when Carol complains like that, it puts me in a difficult position. I had no choice but to endure Carol's criticisms. Then, one day, once again, Donald and Carol came to our house. As usual, Carol brought a large paper bag, intending to take something from our house. Initially, Donald and Carol would come empty-handed, but after a few visits, they started bringing a large paper bag. And every time, they would take away a large amount of food and daily supplies from our house. Everything Donald and Carol took was paid for out of my wallet. I was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with Donald and Carol's lack of restraint. As I was feeling bewildered by Donald and Carol, Carol picked a dress from my closet.
What is this dress? It looks expensive. You're wasting money again. Ah, that's...
I couldn't help but raise my voice. Carol was holding and showing off my dress. Seeing the dress, I turned pale.
Carol, please don't open it without permission. And that dress is a birthday present from my mom. Please, give it back.
I desperately tried to get the dress back from Carol. In fact, this dress was something my mom had cherished for a long time. For work, my mom would wear famous brand clothes when going to clients. This dress was given to me by my mom.
Jessica, you're old enough now. Become a dignified woman like me.
So, this is something I cannot give to Carol. However, Carol looked at the dress and laughed.
This kind of nice dress is still too early for you. I'll wear it for you. Be grateful. How could you? It's a birthday present from my mom, you know?
I was on the verge of tears. Then William, who had been watching the whole time, said with a laugh,
Mom's offering to wear it for you, be thankful. You're a wife of the Smith family. It's a wife's duty to listen to Mom, isn't it?
William always tried to make me concede with the phrase wife of the Smith family. This wasn't something new. On the first weekend after we got married, when I was called to the in-laws' house from the morning and told to weed the garden, William said that.
It's a rule for the wife of the Smith family. Now, get on with it.
William sounded as if he was someone of higher status, using his position to act superior. But I didn't want to give up the dress. As I stayed silent, feeling humiliated, Donald said authoritatively,
William took an older wife, and we can't even see a grandchild's face. At the very least, doing us favors is your duty, isn't it?
Even though I'm the same age as William, Donald's notion that it's okay for a man but not for a woman irritates me.
Yeah, exactly, Dad's right. So, give the dress to Mom.
William nodded as if it was only natural.
How terrible!
There's not a single ally in this house. No matter what I say, I'm made out to be the villain. Carol was happily putting the dress into the paper bag. So, I reluctantly complied with William, Donald, and Carol. And the problem isn't just Donald and Carol. There's also a big problem with William. Recently, William has been coming home late, and there have been many days we haven't eaten dinner together.
I'm home.
Today again, William comes home at 1 a.m. in a good mood. He must have been drinking. His face is red. Welcome back. I greet William with a puzzled look. William, without caring about how I feel, spoke to me.
I'm going to take a shower. Can you put away my bag for me?
William hands me his bag and heads straight to the shower. It's always like this, I say in disbelief as I go to put his bag in his room. Then, I heard a notification sound from a mobile phone inside the bag. William left his mobile phone in his bag again. William always carries his mobile phone with him, but today, perhaps because he's drunk, he forgot it in his bag. If it's an emergency work call, it could be serious. I gently take William's mobile phone out of the bag. And as I look at the screen to check, I freeze.
What is this?
Displayed on the mobile phone was the name Lisa.
Today was so much fun. But it got late, haven't your wife noticed? I'm worried. Love, Lisa.
Reading this text, I was convinced of William's affair. Then, there were several more texts from Lisa. Some of them were explicit, and it became clear that William had been cheating for a long time. I took photos of the mobile phone screen expressionlessly, one after another. I thought this would be useful as evidence of William's infidelity when the time comes. However, this alone wasn't enough as proof. I sighed. Besides, I'm already 50, and it would be difficult to remarry after leaving William. Without children, the thought of being alone from now on was mentally tough. What should I do now? Holding William's mobile phone, I was at a loss. Then one day, William said to me,
The anniversary of Mom and Dad's wedding is coming up. Hurry up and plan the trip.
William expected me to act as if it were a given. I understand. I could only nod in agreement with William. Every year, we present a trip to Donald and Carol for their wedding anniversary. Of course, William and I also accompany them, catering to Donald and Carol. We have been booking the same hotel every year, and I plan to book it again this year. But then, William suddenly said something unexpected.
That's right. Since it's the 50th anniversary of Mom and Dad's marriage this year, book a special hotel for them, will you? What?
I was bewildered. The usual hotel was already quite high grade. Moreover, the cost of the hotel is all paid from my salary. William would say,
Paying for the trip and showing filial piety is the role of a son's wife. It's my role to have fun there and show them a good time.
That's why booking a too expensive hotel would only increase my burden. As I was puzzled, William said in a bad mood,
It's their 50th wedding anniversary. Don't you have any respect for my parents?
William continued to nag, insisting on how I lacked awareness as a wife. Exhausted by William's lecture, I simply replied, I got it, and ended the conversation. When thinking of a higher grade hotel, only one hotel came to mind. The reservation process for it was a bit special. After successfully making the reservation, I approached William. I've booked the hotel, William said with a nasty smile.
Make sure it's a hotel that I like, okay? I won't accept it if it's an inferior hotel.
William looked ready to find fault with an unpleasant face. I sighed at William and replied, It's a distance by plane, but it's a respectable hotel. Look, this should satisfy you, right? Showing him the hotel's homepage on the mobile phone, William nodded in satisfaction.
Well, this is barely acceptable. Have you booked the flight yet?
Not yet. It shouldn't be crowded this time of year, and it's a weekday. I think booking a flight won't be an issue. As I answered, William said something unexpected.
I'll book the flight.
This was a sudden offer from William, who had never taken initiative before. Surprised, I asked,
Really?
Then William smiled broadly.
Yeah. You always works hard, so I can at least book the flight. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. I sincerely thanked William. I thought William was finally becoming cooperative. Maybe William was starting to change. That's what I hoped. However, my decision at that moment would greatly shake the situation. On the day of the trip, William went to pick up Donald and Carol first, so I was to meet them at the airport.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
Arriving with my and William's luggage, William and the others were already at the meeting spot. And for some reason, Donald, Carol, and William were smiling maliciously. I had a bad feeling. As I thought this and looked at their hands, each was holding a plane ticket. I called out to William,
Can I get my plane ticket too?
Then, in the next moment, William said something unbelievable.
I forgot to buy it.
William was laughing cheerfully. Just mine. Unable to believe this sudden revelation, I asked William.
That's right. I bought tickets for Mom and Dad, though. Ha ha ha.
Saying so, William sported a malicious grin. That attitude made me realize he must have deliberately not bought only my ticket.
William, you're such a klutz.
Carol, laughing so hard she was holding her stomach, called out to William. Everyone was laughing uproariously, making me feel really sick.
That's fine. I'll just go home,
I said with a sigh.
Do that. A fancy hotel doesn't suit someone like you, right? It's actually for the better.
William was smiling.
Don't go dining out alone and splurge, okay? I'll be checking the receipts afterward,
Carol said with a laugh and a condescending tone.
Well, now that it's settled, let's hurry and go.
Donald happily called out to William and the others, and the three of them headed to the boarding gate. How low do these people think of me? I can never forgive them. I took out my mobile phone and called someone. Then I immediately purchased a ticket on a different flight than William and his party. Surely, the three of them will regret this. At 3 p.m. that day, I received a call. My phone was on silent, so it didn't ring, but the caller was William. As I thought. I laughed maliciously and ignored the call. Actually, the flight William and his party were booked on was a morning flight. Check-in was at 3 p.m., so they probably planned to enjoy some sightseeing upon arrival. I, however, headed to the luxury hotel they were planning to stay at before them. And at the luxury hotel, I approached a certain person waiting there. Mom. Sorry for the sudden visit. That person was my mom. I apologized to Mom as soon as I saw her.
What on earth are you doing, Jessica? You went to all the trouble of booking this high-grade hotel. Now you're saying suddenly you can't stay?
Mom asked, looking exasperated. Actually, I told Mom about everything that William, Donald, and Carol had done. I also mentioned how Carol had taken the dress Mom gave me. Then, visibly angry, Mom declared,
I will never forgive them. I'll get that dress back.
Then Mom and I plotted a plan. We earnestly requested the cooperation of the manager, Stephanie. Once we had a rough plan in place, William and his party arrived at the hotel. I spotted William and discreetly hid behind the front desk. William, unaware of me, approached the check-in desk with a smile, followed by a cheerful Donald and Carol.
We have a reservation at 3 p.m. under Smith. I don't see Jessica with you.
Stephanie responded with a puzzled look. The reservation was made under my full name. It was natural for Stephanie to say so. William, seemingly unfazed, confidently informed.
My wife couldn't make it due to sudden illness. It shouldn't be a problem, right? Someone else will come later, so there's no need to cancel the reservation.
Although I had a good idea of who the someone else might be, I remained silent, listening. Stephanie smiled broadly at William and declared,
If Jessica is absent, the reservation cannot be used. What?
William and his party froze at Stephanie's sudden announcement. Then, William repeatedly called me, probably out of confusion. Quickly regaining her composure, Carol confronted Stephanie.
What do you mean by cannot be used? Jessica made the reservation for us. And we've come all this way by plane.
Carol looked visibly confused. We came here today also as a celebration. So please, somehow, allow us. William said, trying to persuade Stephanie. Stephanie sighed as if in resignation.
If you insist, you may use it. But you'll be willing to pay the additional charges, right? Additional charges? What do you mean?
William asked Stephanie, surprised. Stephanie glanced at a woman sitting nearby. President. Maybe it's time to tell them the truth.
Right, I'll handle this. Thank you.
During the exchange between Stephanie and the woman, Carol looked puzzled.
Who is that woman? Wearing those dark sunglasses?
Carol began to say, but stopped abruptly, as she recognized the woman.
You're Jessica's mother, aren't you? Why are you here?
Carol said, looking confused. Mom and Donald and Carol had only met at family-only weddings. Mom smiled warmly in response.
It's been a while. By the way, where is my Jessica? She's not feeling well.
William continued to lie in response to Mom's question. Mom sighed at William's response.
Don't lie. I spoke to Jessica on the phone earlier and she sounded fine. Moreover, this hotel reservation was made using our company's corporate rate. If she isn't here, you'll have to pay the standard rate.
At Mom's mention of our company, William, Donald, and Carol began to show obvious signs of confusion.
What? It would be about a 70% increase. Can William and his family afford that?
Mom chuckled.
What are you talking about our company? Jessica didn't mention any corporate rate to us. And she never told me about you either.
William spoke with confusion. Clearly, the overload of information was too much for him to process. Carol also addressed Mom.
Is this a corporate rate from the company you work for? What a benefit you have even for a low-level employee. Your company must be a small one with generous welfare.
Carol's sharp remark caused Mom's brow to furrow. I had never gone into detail about Mom with William, Donald, and Carol. Since they never asked, I hadn't shared much about her. So, when Mom revealed her identity, William and the others were visibly shocked.
Me? I am the president of Kia Holdings Corporation. Jessica is, in fact, the designated future president.
Mom said this with a bright smile.
Kia Holdings Corporation? That's a major company.
Carol exclaimed loudly. Donald and William also looked shocked. Kia Holdings Corporation is one of the top travel agencies in the country. They also operate hotels and restaurants, among other businesses. In fact, this hotel falls under our group, allowing us to use it at a significantly reduced rate. Kia Holdings Corporation is a dynasty, with our family leading it for generations. And currently, Mom is the president of Kia Holdings Corporation. I know the company Jessica works for, but it's not Kia Holdings Corporation. Melissa, are you lying to us? William glared at Mom. William and I work in different companies within the same building. That's why William said such a thing to Mom. Mom laughed and explained in a humorous tone.
That company is just where she is seconded to. So, her actual affiliation is with Kia Holdings Corporation. She has completed her training and plans to return to the headquarters the year after next.
Saying so, Mom handed her business card to William. William looked at the business card and his face turned pale.
So, you really are the president of Kia Holdings Corporation?
William's body trembled slightly. Next to him, Donald and Carol also looked pale. Donald is now retired and living on a pension, but he used to work as a corporate employee. He seemed to have worked for a mid-sized company, and I heard from William that he retired as a manager. The difference in status between Donald, who retired as a mid-sized company manager, and Mom, who is the president of a major corporation, was stark. Then, Mom continued her attack.
That dress. I gave it to Jessica. Why are you wearing it? It's my special dress for important occasions.
With that, she glares at Carol.
I'm sorry. I'll take it off right now.
Carol, turning pale, hurriedly looks for a place to change. After quickly changing, she returns the dress to Mom.
If there's even a slight fray, I'll be billing you for the repairs, understand?
Yes. Carol replies meekly to Mom's declaration. Then, William, as if remembering something, murmurs,
I need to tell Lisa not to come here.
Mom doesn't react as if she hadn't heard him. However, I didn't miss his murmur. Stepping out from the front desk, I shout loudly.
Lisa won't be coming. Jessica? Why are you here? I called you several times.
William is clearly shaken. Carol is just as agitated.
Jessica, you weren't supposed to have a ticket, and now you've even took my dress.
She nearly screams. Mom quickly retorted.
The dress was Jessica's to begin with. It's not yours.
Donald is also quite flustered.
Kia Holdings Corporation, that's a bigger company than the one I worked for. And she was the president,
he says, disheartened. Prideful as he is, the revelation probably wounded his ego.
I came on a different flight. To get revenge on you all,
I say with a smile.
So, Lisa not coming is. I made sure she wouldn't come. Right after you all left on the plane this morning, I called her.
The day I found out about William's affair through his mobile phone, I discreetly visited a detective agency and requested an investigation. I obtained Lisa's contact information along with the investigation results. I had planned to talk to Lisa directly at some point, but this occasion prompted me to call her directly. After our conversation, Lisa made a decision. I calmly tell William the truth.
Lisa has decided to break up with you. After I contacted her about compensation, she apologized. I was only after William for his money. I was never serious about someone old like him.
Lisa was still in her 30s. The reason she dated William, who was 20 years older, was for his money. She was attracted to the idea of being treated to meals and receiving brand items from him. Lisa had been quite clear.
He invited me to travel with his parents, so I thought it was time to end things. I didn't want to marry William anyway.
Hearing this, William was shocked.
That's a lie, right? I was thinking of divorcing to be with Lisa.
William. Carol consoles a stunned William. Donald also shows sympathy towards William. Mom and I look on coldly at the three of them. Then, I make my final decision to William.
I'm also divorcing you, William. Now you're free to date whoever you want, not just Lisa.
At my mention of divorce, William becomes defensive.
I have no intention of divorcing. It's meaningless without Lisa. I'll never sign any divorce papers. After all, there's no conclusive evidence of infidelity.
Carol echoes William's sentiment.
That's right. We won't allow a divorce. After all, Jessica is the future president of Kia Holdings Corporation, right? We can lead an even wealthier life.
Carol's eyes gleam unervingly. Donald also seems pleased, probably anticipating financial support from me. However, I won't let things go their way. I glare back at them.
Then, how about you look at this?
I hand over the results of the detective agency's investigation to them. The evidence clearly shows the affair. Photos and texts provide irrefutable proof. Faced with undeniable evidence, William and the others turn even paler.
They even followed us here. How?
Looking at them, I let out a laugh.
The condition for waiving Lisa's compensation was that she testify favorably about mine and William's divorce. It'll be interesting to see what she says if it goes to court.
As I laughed, William's face turned ashen. His face was filled with despair. Donald and Carol looked as if they had been thrown into the depths of hell. I had no intention of forgiving William, Donald, and Carol. I was prepared to fight them to the end, ensuring they fell into their own hell. Eventually, the divorce between me and William was finalized. William resisted until the end, but eventually caved.
I'll apologize as many times as it takes. Just please spare me from divorce. If I had known you were the future president of Kia Holdings Corporation, I would never have cheated.
He pleaded with me. But I was relentless. Mom recommended a competent lawyer, and I confronted William with evidence of his affair. William was left speechless by the evidence.
Considering how this is going, should we talk about increasing the compensation?
I suggested, turning William's face even paler.
I'm so sorry.
With that, William hastily signed the divorce papers. Despite all his resistance, it ended anticlimactically. Although I didn't demand compensation from Lisa, she ended up being fired. As it turned out, Lisa worked for a company affiliated with Kia Holdings Corporation, so Mom talked to the affiliate.
This isn't what we agreed on.
Lisa was reportedly in tears, but that was none of my concern. Lisa would likely struggle with job hunting from now on. Even after the divorce, the trouble with William continued. William, Donald, and Carol started lurking in front of my workplace building. It seems William's misconduct had been exposed to his company because of the divorce. William had been involved with several other women besides Lisa. Some had interacted with William for promotions. However, since Mom had connections with the president of William's company, she revealed all of William's actions. The president was furious and demoted William. This led to a surge of internal complaints against William. Some were even considering filing official reports. Eventually, William felt uncomfortable continuing at his job and resigned. And so he became unemployed. Donald and Carol, being retired and not working, couldn't support an unemployed William. Carol had always been a housewife, and Donald had only ever reached the level of manager before retiring. Their income wasn't high, and their pension wasn't enough. With me gone, they couldn't afford their luxuries anymore and were dissatisfied. That's why they conspired with William to ambush me at my workplace. What a hassle. I consulted the police, but they couldn't act immediately. However, a decisive moment came. One day, I ignored William and his group waiting to ambush me and tried to enter my workplace building. Then William approached and grabbed my arm.
Ouch! Let go!
But William wouldn't release his grip.
Getting cocky because we've been quiet. We're struggling without money. We'll remarry and you'll support us again.
William said, pushing a marriage consent form at me.
Just sign it. It's for our sake, so hurry up and sign.
Carol also grabbed my arm, forcing a pen into my hand.
Don't even think about running away.
Donald was there too, blocking any escape.
Enough is enough.
As I was struggling, a voice called out.
William and the rest of you, stop it right now.
It was Mom. Mom. Relief washed over me as Mom arrived to help. Mom always came to my rescue.
Security! Over here!
Mom called for the security guards.
Ah!
Donald and Carol panicked and ran off. The sight was pitiful.
Don't leave me behind!
Only William's cries echoed as he was left behind. Thus, William was caught by the security guards and handed over to the police. Marks from William's grip were left on my arm. Because of that, I decided to file a report this time. Donald and Carol may have escaped, but the police will likely contact them soon. William, Donald, and Carol have acted in a manner that will lose them social credibility. With no jobs, their future looks bleak. Since then, I have returned to the headquarters of Kia Holdings Corporation. William's whereabouts have become unknown after that incident. He seems to have fled to avoid arrest by the police. Donald and Carol returned to their house after the incident. Therefore, the police visited their house to hear their side of the story voluntarily. For my safety, I changed my workplace. Although I could have continued working at the same company, I was supposed to return the year after next anyway. Mom decided it wouldn't be a problem to return now. Since returning to the headquarters of Kia Holdings Corporation, my days have been bustling. During my secondment, I was involved in various job functions such as sales, accounting, and planning. I thought I had gained a considerable amount of experience, but the scale of the headquarters is completely different. Every single number is on a different scale, so there's a constant sense of tension. However, I have a reliable ally.
Jessica, we're going to visit our clients. You need to get your face remembered quickly.
Mom calls out to me.
I'm coming.
I hurry to follow Mom. This busyness helps me forget the painful past with William and the others. And I'm nothing but grateful to Mom, who has helped me through tough times. To repay Mom, I continue to look forward today.
Sally, you know what? If I can find evidence of how badly you've treated me, the law states that I could get an increased alimony in the divorce settlement.
Wow, you're such a terrible person. But considering our future life together, I guess that's the best way to go about it. I never imagined that behind my back, Tom was having these kinds of conversations with his mistress. He's completely ignoring his own infidelity while trying to frame me as the one at fault, just so he can get a bigger slice of the alimony pie. I feel pathetic for not seeing through his true colors sooner. But I can't afford to wallow in self-pity forever. I have someone precious I need to protect. No matter what, I have to safeguard my life with Henry, and I won't rest until I make that man pay for what he's done. That cheating bastard who's been having the time of his life, and that homewrecker who shattered my family while I was struggling with infertility treatments. I'll never forgive them. I'm Maria. I'm a working mom and I will be turning 37 this year. Living with my husband Tom, who's 6 years older, and our only son Henry. It's been 15 years since I graduated college and started working full-time at a welfare organization. Every day is a whirlwind of work and mommy duties. The welfare group I work for exclusively uses office supplies from the manufacturer Tom works at. So Tom and I go way back. Tom is a salesman at a major stationery company, and he's got a real way with words. When I was a newbie, I was at the very bottom of the totem pole. Ordering supplies, dealing with manufacturers, all the grunt work fell on my shoulders. That's when I met Tom.
Thanks for everything, as always. You know, Maria, I've always thought you have a beautiful smile.
Flattery will get you nowhere, mister. What's with the sudden compliment?
I'm just the type who blurts out whatever that's on my mind. I bet if I had a meal with you, it would taste dozens of times better than usual.
Back then, Tom was popular with the other female employees and super handsome, so I certainly didn't mind being complimented like that. Smooth talker, huh? Well then, how about we grab a bite sometime? You like your booze, don't you, Tom?
How'd you know that?
That sticker on your phone, it's from that wine event, right? I went to that too. We really hit it off chatting about the wine event and started going out for drinks after that. The more dates we went on, the more naturally the topic of marriage came up. I was 25 and Tom was 31 when we tied the knot. The timing felt just right, and as someone who loves good food, I felt lucky to be marrying a guy I could geek out about the same interests with. Married life was going smoothly, But every now and then Tom would catch me off guard with some out-of-the-blue comments. One time, Tom suddenly said he wanted to buy a house. We hadn't been married long and didn't have any kids yet. It completely threw me for a loop.
Wait, you want to buy a house now of all times?
Yes, now.
Just hear me out.
This was right around the time I turned 31 and was in the thick of fertility treatments. Each day felt like being stuck in a tunnel with no end in sight. The ever-increasing expenses and stress were suffocating me.
But you never even mentioned wanting our own place before. Isn't this too sudden?
There were plenty of times I couldn't figure out what Tom was thinking, but this was the first time he'd ever sprung something so unexpected on me.
We don't know what the future holds. There could be job transfers and whatnot.
Tom works for a big stationery company, and talks of relocating for work come up every few years. When you're married and thinking about having kids, you can't help being sensitive to that stuff. Tom seemed to have been thinking about it too.
I want us to build our future right here. What do you think, Maria?
I know what you mean. My family's close by too, and I don't want to leave this place.
I had a feeling you'd feel the same way.
For all we knew, we could have a baby any day. I didn't want any big changes to our current situation. I agreed to Tom's suggestion and we started making preparations to get our own house.
Thank you for understanding. It means a lot.
Just then, I remembered something my father had said. It just so happens that my dad has some land he's planning to repurpose from rice fields. He's looking to sell it now, so I'll ask if he'd be willing to give it to us instead.
What a stroke of luck!
If that works out, it would be such a blessing. When I consulted my father about the land and building our own home, he gladly agreed to hand it over to us. We decided to accept the plot from my parents and build our dream house there. The only issue was whose name to put on the deed. Due to his student loans and other debts, Tom didn't pass the screening for a mortgage. It was an unexpected hurdle, but we were both determined to build our home no matter what.
The thing is, I've got some money I've borrowed, so I can't qualify for a mortgage. Would it be okay to put it in your name, Maria?
I'm working too, so I think it'll be fine. I'll apply under my name then. In the end, the mortgage went through under my name and we were able to build our house without problems. 2 years after moving into our new home, we welcomed our long-awaited baby boy. I was increasingly grateful we had our own place. But there was one thing that nagged at me. During my fertility treatments, there were times around my pregnancy and delivery when I couldn't get in touch with Tom. It wasn't uncommon for my messages to go unread for days. Is it really possible for a regular office worker like Tom to be unreachable for days at a time? But I figured there was no use in dwelling on it. With our new house to pay for, I continued working while raising Henry. Juggling a full-time job with dropping Henry off at daycare could be tough at times, but thinking of Tom and Henry gave me the strength to push through. Today is another day to pick up Henry from the daycare center. Tom always seems to be swamped with work, so the daycare drop-offs and pickups have pretty much become 100% my responsibility.
Mommy, you're here!
Henry, I missed you so much. The moment I pick him up is pure happiness. Sometime after Henry had gotten used to going to daycare, Tom suddenly brought up the idea of extracurricular lessons for him.
Hey, what do you think about signing Henry up for gymnastics classes or something?
Huh? Gymnastics? Why all of a sudden? I asked as Tom scratched his head.
I mean, it's good for boys to be physically coordinated, right? It'd be sad if he got called slow or clumsy because he's not athletic.
I'm not particularly athletic myself, so the thought of sending him to gymnastics never crossed my mind. But Tom had a point, being physically capable certainly can't hurt. It's important to make sure kids don't develop an aversion to sports while they're young.
This gymnastics school seems to have a good reputation,
Tom said as he showed me a social media video. It featured a teacher dressed like an idol, smiling and dancing as she introduced the facilities.
The monthly fee is affordable and they offer sign-up gifts, so I think it's a good choice.
Wow, I didn't know places like this existed these days. All right then. Henry mentioned wanting to try lessons before, so I'll take him to observe a class. Seeing other kids his age having fun probably made Henry want to join too. Since Henry was asking for it, we decided to enroll him in the gymnastics school. By the way, this gymnastics place is a bit far from home. What about transportation?
Oh, I'll handle the drop-offs and pickups, don't worry. I'm the one who suggested it, after all.
Really? But aren't you busy with work?
It's fine, I'm telling you. It's my only chance to really talk with Henry.
Tom is a workaholic and barely gets any days off. Coming home on the last train every night is the norm for him. So for him to volunteer for this was enough to make me wonder what brought about the change.
Things have settled down at work lately with some departmental shuffles and restructuring. My new boss is more understanding if I explain the situation.
I see. So it's okay to leave the transportation to you?
Of course. Leave it to me.
True to his word, on days when Henry had gymnastics, Tom would without fail come home on time. I thought maybe this was an important bonding time for both Tom and Henry. So I decided not to interfere and just watch over them. Little did I know that decision would turn out to be a mistake, but that realization would come a bit later. Several months had passed since Henry started his gymnastics lessons. At first, he had trouble fitting in due to his shy personality, but now he had made close friends and seemed to be enjoying his classes. Usually, Tom would handle Henry's drop-offs and pickups, but he said he absolutely couldn't get off work this time, so I had to go instead. The destination was saved in the car's GPS, so I wouldn't get lost, but since it was my first time going, I felt a little nervous. When I arrived at the gym, Henry was so engrossed in practicing his cartwheels that he didn't even notice me. He would almost nail it, but then tumble over. As I stood there transfixed by his repeated attempts, I sensed someone approaching me.
Hello there.
Thank you for always taking care of my son. It was the woman dressed like an idol who I had seen in the facility introduction video Tom showed me before. I hadn't met her during Henry's enrollment process, so today was our first encounter.
Dad's not here today, huh? Is this your first time, Mom? I'm Sally,
she said, all while intently looking me up and down. I'm not used to being stared at so intensely, so it made me oddly nervous. Unable to bear her appraising gaze, as if she were sizing me up, I decided to strike up a conversation. My husband usually handles the transportation, but he said work would run late today, so I'm filling in. We really appreciate you looking after Henry.
Is that so? But is he really at work today?
Sally's eyes were sharp as she looked at me. Huh? He definitely said it was for work. He always comes home on time every Tuesday for this gymnastics class, but I guess today just didn't work out. At that, Sally broke into a smile and clapped her hands.
I see. He really is a great dad, isn't he?
Something about the way Sally said that with a nasty grin rubbed me the wrong way. But I had no reason to be on this gymnastics teacher's bad side when we just met, so I brushed it off as my imagination. That's just how dads should be, right? Sally's words and actions raised some red flags, but I let it slide and decided to head home. But looking back, I wish I had tried to glean more clues from Sally that time. Of course, I had no inkling of the regrets to come. In the end, Tom didn't get home until around 10 p.m.
How was Henry's gymnastics today?
I went, and I don't think there were any issues.
You didn't say anything unnecessary, did you?
He could at least express some gratitude, but instead he takes that tone with me. Ignoring my displeasure, Tom abruptly changed the subject.
Unnecessary things?
Never mind.
Oh, by the way, I'll be away on a business trip starting tomorrow, so, yeah. A sudden business trip, huh? Until when?
With that, Tom started walking toward the bedroom, irritably loosening his tie.
Until when? That depends on how work goes. How would I know?
Oh, I see. Tom's made no effort to hide his foul mood lately. Better not to pry, I guess. The first weekend rolled around after Tom left for his business trip. I decided to clean Tom's study. Knowing him, I bet he never cleans it himself, and it's a total mess in there. I brought in a vacuum cleaner, a rag, and a disinfectant spray with the intention of doing some serious cleaning. Bracing myself, I opened the door to the study, and in that instant, I remember feeling that something was off. Tom's study was oddly spotless. The papers were neatly stacked on the right side, the files organized by height, and the cords tidily bundled. Every single thing was clean to a degree I never would have imagined from the Tom I knew. The desk, without a speck of dust, looked like something out of a model room. Honestly, with everything this spotless, there was nothing left for me to do. With that thought, I grabbed my cleaning supplies and was about to leave the room when it suddenly hit me. Had Tom ever kept his study this clean before? He was the type who couldn't care less how messy his space got, utterly indifferent to it all. Henry, on the other hand, had a weak constitution since he was little, and house dust was his worst enemy. Tom never cleaned his study, so whenever he came out of there, it often triggered coughing fits for Henry that wouldn't stop. No matter how many times I warned him or pleaded with him for Henry's sake, Tom never lifted a finger to clean, not even once. Why the hell should I have to clean? If it bugs you that much, you do it, Maria.
You've got work documents and stuff in there, right? If I go messing with things and you can't find them later, that's on you. Besides, I want you to clean what you can because the house dust makes Henry's cough non-stop.
I'll never forget how irritated Tom sounded when he retorted.
What's wrong with him is that he's coughing pathetically even though he's a boy.
Must have inherited your weak constitution, Maria. Tom, who had no qualms saying hurtful things just to get out of cleaning. There's no way that same Tom would clean this much without a reason. For him to tidy up to this extent, there had to be some motive behind it. First, I checked his desk and noticed papers sticking out in an odd way. Pulling them out, I found divorce papers, all filled out. Every section that required Tom's input was completed. Had I done something to make him bring up divorce? As I searched for any other potential clues, I spotted something glinting in the crack of his closet. Trepidatiously, I took a look and found an unfamiliar dolphin charm.
Huh? What's this charm? There's even half a heart on it. What's the matter?
It's nothing. The charm with a glittering blue dolphin and half a heart was attached to a smartphone I'd never seen before. His work phone. But didn't Tom say he was going on a business trip? Would he really forget to bring his work phone on a business trip? My curiosity piqued. I opened the folio-style smartphone case. It looked like a normal case, but the card slot seemed oddly bulky. When I felt it, there was a single photo inside. The photo, seemingly taken at an aquarium, showed Tom and Sally together. In the corner, a child could also be seen. I had a bad feeling about this. As much as I wanted it to be a lie, I couldn't stop wondering what was on that smartphone. Given that he had a photo with Sally, it definitely wasn't his work phone. It wasn't the one he used in front of me either, so then, could it be a phone he got solely to contact his affair partner? Probably never imagining anyone else would see it, the smartphone didn't have a lock on it. Considering myself lucky, I opened up the phone. Nervously checking his messages, I found a mountain of evidence of his cheating. It seemed he met Sally, the gymnastics teacher, through a dating app and was using this smartphone to communicate with her. When I opened the messaging app, there was a speech bubble next to Sally's name.
Let's hurry up and get divorced so we can be together.
And selfie icon that read. As I scrolled, I spotted a message from Tom to Sally.
Just wait a bit. If I can get proof that Maria treated me horribly, I should be able to get more alimony in the divorce.
Well, aren't you awful? But I suppose that's for the best, considering our life together from here on.
I want to hurry up and live together with the child I had with you, Sally.
That's the kind of exchange that was left behind. His child? Wondering what on earth this meant, I read a bit further into the messages and discovered that apparently, he had a child with Sally. And at this very moment, it came to light that he was on an adultery trip with Sally, using his paid time off. The travel plans they were discussing were for that very day. Reading it made me feel sick to my stomach, but I couldn't afford to throw up here. Continuing to read, new facts emerged. Tom and Sally had a 6-year-old daughter together. They were planning a party for when they officially registered their marriage, and after divorcing me, he intended to move Sally and their child into this house to live together. From what I could gather in the messages, it seemed he had cheated on me with someone he met through a dating app while I was struggling with fertility treatments. Unforgivable. Along with my disillusionment with Tom, I could see what I needed to do. I had to protect my life with Henry. Without delay, I launched my counterattack. I thought the secret affair phone and divorce papers alone might not be strong enough as evidence. If I wasn't careful, he might find a way to weasel out of it. To further solidify my proof, I searched through drawers and closets. That's when I found a marriage registration form and a pair of rings engraved with Sally's name. I added my own name and necessary information to the completed divorce papers I found in the room and went to submit them. Without his knowledge, of course. For him to have everything prepared that meticulously, it could only mean one thing. More than anything, I couldn't bear the thought of living under the same roof as someone capable of infidelity. The fact that he had the divorce papers ready to that extent, with all his sections filled out, meant he was fully intent on divorcing from the start. Considering he even had a marriage form with Sally and their rings neatly tucked away in a drawer, I certainly wasn't going to end my revenge with just submitting the divorce papers. I wouldn't be satisfied unless I went all the way. I proceeded with the steps to sell the house. The land and house were both in my name, so there were no particular issues and I could handle the process based on my judgment alone. Shops and bus stops had popped up around our home, increasing its value, so it was an unexpected stroke of luck that I was able to sell it at a profit even after factoring in the mortgage. While Tom was away from home for work, I was able to steadily move forward with the sale talks. It took a few months, but in the end, I sold the house that was under my name. I had already explained the situation to my parents, so there was no problem with where to live after the sale. If anything, I was grateful for all the ways they helped with my and Henry's living situation. I had the cooperation of my childhood friend who worked as a real estate agent and taught me how to sell the house in secret, so the sale was done on the down low and Tom had no idea the house had been sold. As soon as I got the call from my childhood friend, I packed up my things and left the house together with Henry. Lately, even when Tom did come home, he would avoid me by returning late at night and leaving early in the morning, so he never saw me or Henry at all. Tom was still frequently away from home for business trips and work as usual, so he seemed completely oblivious to the fact that Henry and I were preparing to leave. Tom reached out to me while Henry and I were temporarily staying with my parents after leaving the house.
Where are you?
I could hear the irritation in Tom's voice over the phone, but it was just as I expected.
What does it matter where I am? Why are you suddenly calling me, Tom? I got off work early today, and when I got home, some stranger was there. They abruptly asked me when I could move out, which made no damn sense. Did anything happen while you were at the house, Maria?
I figured this was the right timing, so I decided to tell Tom.
I put the house up for sale while you were gone. I thought it would take longer, but I guess I got lucky. What? What the hell are you saying? You sold my house without my permission.
I was appalled by Tom's words. He seemed to be under the impression that it was his house and couldn't contain his anger.
You think you can get away with doing whatever you want without asking the man of the house?
Man of the house? Who? I couldn't help but retort.
Your house.
What are you talking about?
It's my house. I already know you've been hanging out at your mistress's place every day, Tom. What's that supposed to mean? It's creepy how you've been sneaking around.
I could hear him click his tongue on the other end of the line.
What proof do you have that I'm cheating? And with no house, where the hell do you expect me to live? I don't need to spell it out for you here. Just don't forget that the land and house were in my name, got it? I don't care where you live, Tom, but hand it over pronto. What the hell do you take me for, Maria?
A complete stranger. I submitted the divorce papers, by the way.
Go shack up with your mistress, and that should solve everything, right? The one you were fooling around with while I was suffering through treatments. I won't even ask for alimony, so count yourself lucky.
Then, unable to contain his glee, Tom started talking over the phone.
I couldn't care less about you, Maria. Do whatever you want. I never planned on paying alimony anyway.
After hearing Tom's words, I hung up the phone. Not once did he bring up Henry or show even a shred of concern for him. I couldn't forgive Tom for that. Honestly, I had even thought that as long as I could quickly leave Tom behind, driven solely by my own pain, that would be enough. But I realized that was the wrong approach. I had to find a way to hurt Tom, who didn't spare a single thought for Henry and acted like he didn't even exist. Somehow, I wanted to make Tom pay. That's when I got some good news from an acquaintance at the gymnastics school. Apparently, Sally was planning a wedding party and inviting her close friends. It seemed Sally was connected with some of the gymnastics school moms on social media. She had supposedly made posts on there hinting at a party she was planning at a rented-out wedding venue. An acquaintance gave me her account info, so I checked it out right away and saw Sally's posts gushing with happiness.
The joy of marrying someone you truly love.
From the way she was posting, you could tell her head was filled with bliss. Following her social media posts, I was able to find out the wedding party's location and date, so I decided to crash it that day. On the day of the wedding party, I was at the wedding hall in the neighboring town. Henry and I had been eagerly awaiting this day. I couldn't believe he cheated on me without any regard for our family, and his mistress had to be our son's gymnastics teacher of all people.
Let's go.
Yeah. Mom, can you tell him directly?
Yep. And Henry, you don't need to push yourself, okay?
Henry looked at me and smiled.
Mom, I thought something might be up since you always seemed down when Dad was around, but don't overdo it yourself, okay?
The wedding hall had an open setup, so it had a welcoming vibe like anyone could come in. When I dropped Tom's name, I was immediately led into the venue where they were introducing the bride and groom's profiles. They spun the story of how Sally met Tom while working as a gymnastics instructor in an unfamiliar place as a single mother, finally reaching the goal of marriage. Watching the meticulously crafted profile video made me want to hurl, but I couldn't afford to lose it here. I made my way through the crowd and reached where Sally was. Sally had just finished talking with a friend and was standing alone, so I thought the timing was perfect. I approached from behind and tapped her on the shoulder. The way Sally's face stiffened when she turned around still makes me laugh to this day.
Long time no see, Teach. How've you been?
I'll never forget the shocked look on Sally's face when she saw me.
What? No way. Henry's mom? Why are you here? I should be asking you that. Throwing a wedding party like this. So you're the one Tom's remarrying, huh?
For a moment she looked uncomfortable, but quickly replied.
We just had a fateful encounter while I was working at the gymnastics school. The only difference is timing, but I was his destined partner, you see. I hear you have a child, Sally. So you and Tom are getting married with kids in tow?
It's just like we showed in the profile video.
He loves me, child and all, so I decided to marry him.
The child was the one I saw in the corner of the photo tucked in that smartphone case. Watching the kid next to Sally boredly playing games on a phone, it was easy to imagine they hadn't been raising the child properly. I borrowed the mic from the MC and shouted out right then and there.
Everyone, I'm Tom's ex-wife who he just recently divorced. Sally says she's remarrying and bringing a child from her previous husband, but take a look at this.
I held up a single sheet of paper.
I have the results of a DNA test right here. We had it done, and well, what do you know? The connection was proven.
The wedding guests started making a commotion. The group that had been boredly drinking until now and the women who were fixing their hair all turned to look at me.
Which means your child is not a stepchild to my ex-husband. They were actually parent and child from the start. How does it feel to have introduced the child born from an affair to the real father? What? Why would you say something like that?
The human gaze is hard to deceive, and the murmuring only grew louder and louder. I couldn't wrap my head around the nerve of showing up as the father to a child born from cheating. Just moments ago, they were brazenly spinning the tale of a fated marriage in their backstory and profiles, so it was no wonder the guests were watching with shock and curiosity.
I'm amazed you were this close. To think you had more than a teacher-student's parent relationship. But I wonder what people at your work will say when they find out the truth behind this marriage. We just matched on an app, okay? Leave it alone.
Beside me, Henry was recording the wedding on his phone. I took the phone from Henry and told Sally and Tom.
I wonder what would happen if I sent this video to your coworkers. From the looks of it, I bet they have no idea you've been having an affair for years.
I showed them the customer inquiry pages on both their companies' websites. Then I operated the phone and attached the video I just recorded.
If you thought you could cheat and start a new life scot-free, you're dead wrong, Sally and Tom. You're sending this to our workplaces? What good would that do? Exactly. They'll just think it's some prank video or something. No one can tear apart our destined bond.
Undaunted by their words, I continued.
You see, I sent this directly to your bosses at work, no, to people even higher up than that. What? What do you mean? I sent an inquiry a little while back and was told they wanted to be contacted directly. We agreed that I would send it like this. Why the hell would you do that on your own? What are we supposed to do now? My promotion was riding on this.
Tom clutched his head in frustration, but that's none of my concern.
I don't know what you reported to them,
but I can't imagine your companies would tolerate infidelity. You better be prepared for the fallout." As I spoke, Tom and Sally glared at me in vexation, but the story doesn't end there. Right after the wedding, the two of them were apparently called in by their respective workplaces. Not only was Tom's path to promotion blocked, I heard he got transferred to a regional branch. Even if he wanted to quit, he has no special skills to speak of, and they saw right through the fact that he couldn't realistically change jobs at his age. As for Sally, she was fired and now has to live on Tom's income alone. Even with a child, he got demoted and his meager salary will make it tough to get by. Sally's social media, which used to be filled with glamorous posts, gradually became overrun with complaints. Posts that clearly showed she was mentally unwell or desperately seeking attention started to stand out, and her follower count visibly dwindled. Occasionally, there are blatant posts bad-mouthing me. I bet she hasn't doubted for a second that what she did was wrong. In a way, I'm almost envious she can live her life with such a lack of self-awareness. Now, I used the money from selling the house to buy an apartment where I'm living with Henry. Henry is about to reach the age to graduate elementary school. Our new life keeps me busy with all sorts of things, but I feel like I can overcome it all as long as I'm with Henry.
Mom, where should I put this box?
Oh, that one goes in the next room.
Okay. What should I do with this?
Henry showed me a cardboard box filled with Tom's belongings. I was considering throwing it out, but then thought it wasn't right to toss it without permission, so I was stumped about how to dispose of it. As we were sorting through our things, noon rolled around.
It's already this late.
I'm gonna pop over to the nearby convenience store. What do you want for lunch? I'll pick something up.
The new pasta they just released. I've been wanting to try it ever since I saw the commercial.
Got it. Actually, let's both take a break and go shopping together. When we walked out to the apartment entrance, I laid eyes on someone I couldn't believe. It was Tom. I had only told a select few people the address of our new apartment, but somehow Tom found out and was standing in front of the building. I nearly screamed when I saw him.
Long time no see.
I guess he can't shake the habit of trying to act cool. When he saw me and Henry, he raised the corner of his mouth and lifted his hand. That gesture that seemed so suave when we were dating now just looks pathetic.
Huh? What are you doing here? Wow, you sound so harsh. Is it so wrong to want to see you once in a while?
Once in a while? Henry, and I don't want to see your face at all. He glared at me and then immediately turned to face Henry.
About time you started wanting to see your old man again, huh? I know, let's hit up a family restaurant. Order whatever you want, it's on me.
Henry brushed off his hand and looked at Tom with an expression like he was staring at something filthy.
Don't joke around. Why the hell would I go to a restaurant with you? You? What's with that attitude? You go and cheat without a care, wreck our lives, and now it's all I'm so happy these days. Maybe I should grace my kid with my presence once in a while.
Spare us the bad comedy routine. Tom tried to grab us in a fit of anger, but Henry dodged him. In the blink of an eye, Henry had Tom locked in a grapple.
What? What's going on?
Henry has been practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since he started elementary school. He's now one of the top-ranked practitioners in the States, so his skills are the real deal. Tom, caught in Henry's self-defense technique, has a look on his face like he can't comprehend what's happening. The way he effortlessly applies the hold with such fluid movements is enough to make even me, his mother, stare in awe.
I'm glad I kept up my training all this time, thinking I'd protect Mom from getting hurt. Let go of me! You think it's okay to use violence against your father? I don't think of you as a father. Going there with you will ruin the restaurant. Still not getting it?
I guess being told off like that by his own son was a real shock, because he turned and left. I was surprised to see how strong Henry had become, and it filled me with joy. After that, Tom stopped showing his face around us. Honestly, I didn't want to see him anyway, so good riddance. Despite everything that happened, I think Henry grew up to be a strong yet kind young man. As a parent, I couldn't be happier. Maybe it got through to him that I never wanted him to take after Tom, his father, but Henry really is a sweetheart. It makes me shudder to think what would have happened if I had ignored that divorce filing and kept living as I was. I'm still working at the same job as before, but I feel like this was the right choice. Now, I've renewed my resolve to live for my own and Henry's happiness.